I never should have ignored my grandmother's warnings about full moons in these woods. Maybe if I had listened, I wouldn't be sitting here in my ranger station right now, hands shaking as I write this down. But I need to tell someone what's happening in Ozark National Forest, because if I don't make it through the night, at least there will be a record of the truth. My name is Rebecca Martinez, and I've been a park ranger here for 12 years, just like my mom was, and her mom before her. Most days I love my job. The smell of pine needles in the morning, the sound of birds waking up the forest, the peace of being alone with nature. It's in my blood. Or at least it was until 3 days ago. It started with the deer. Usually they're everywhere this time of year, especially near the limestone caves where they like to shelter. But that morning, there wasn't a single one in sight. Even stranger, I found dozens of deer tracks all heading in the same direction, away from the caves, away from their usual feeding grounds. In 20 years of tracking animals, I'd never seen anything like it. I radioed back to headquarters. "This is Martinez at Station 7. Anyone else notice anything weird with the wildlife?" "Today?" Static crackled for a moment before Tom's voice came through. "Now that you mention it, we've had 3 reports of abandoned bear dens, cubs and all, just gone." A chill ran down my spine, even though it was a warm September morning. Animals don't just abandon their young, not unless they're running from something worse than hunger. I decided to check the caves myself. The entrance to the main cavity was larger than usual, like something had clawed away at the rocks. Inside, my flashlight beam caught something that made my stomach turn. Claw marks ran along the walls, but these weren't from any bear. They were too high up, at least 7 feet off the ground. And they looked almost deliberate, like writing but in a language I couldn't read. That's when I heard it. A sound that didn't belong in these woods. It was like a wolf's howl, but wrong somehow. Deeper, almost human. And it wasn't just one voice, but many, all howling together in a harmony that made my skin crawl. My hand went to the medicine pouch at my belt, a gift from my grandmother before she passed. Inside were herbs and crystals she said would protect me from the old spirits of these mountains. I'd always thought those were just stories she told, like the ones about my Cherokee ancestors who once lived here. But as the howls got closer, I remembered the last thing she ever said to me. "The pack hunts when the moon is full, child. They've been waiting a long time to come home." I grabbed my radio again, but all I got was static. Then I heard something that made my blood freeze. Footsteps outside the cave. Heavy footsteps. And beneath them a sound like claws scratching on stone. The beam of my flashlight caught movement at the cave entrance. For a split second I saw something that shouldn't exist. A massive shape, at least 7 feet tall, standing on 2 legs. But it wasn't human. No human has yellow eyes that glow in the dark, or teeth that long, or fur that black. I ran. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life, all the way back to my ranger station. But as I slammed the door behind me, I knew one thing for certain. It had let me escape. Because I heard laughter. Not animal sounds, but actual laughter, echoing through the trees behind me. Night is falling now, and the moon is rising. It'll be full in just a few days. I can hear them out there moving in the darkness. They're waiting for something, planning something, and I keep thinking about my sister Maria, who disappeared in these same woods 15 years ago. They never found her body. Now, for the first time, I'm starting to understand why. I need to figure out what these things are, and I need to do it fast, because I don't think they're going to wait much longer. The pack has come home, just like my grandmother warned, and I have a terrible feeling that I know what they're hunting. I spent that whole night looking through my grandmother's old journals. They were the only thing she left me besides the medicine pouch, and I'd never really read them before. Now, sitting in my ranger station with rain pattering on the roof, I couldn't stop turning the pages. "The moon brings them strength," she'd written. "They are not wolves, and they are not men. They are something the old ones feared, something that walked these hills long before us." My hands trembled as I read about the missing people from her time. Every 13 years, when the moon was fullest, hikers would disappear. just like my sister Maria. I remember that day so clearly. Maria and I were checking trail markers, normal ranger stuff. She was ahead of me laughing about something. Then she just stopped, like she'd heard something I couldn't hear. She turned around and her eyes were strange, empty somehow. "Do you hear them calling?" she'd asked. Before I could answer, she walked into the trees. I ran after her, but it was like she'd vanished into thin air. We searched for weeks. Found nothing. A knock at my door made me jump. It was Tom, the senior ranger, looking worried. "Rebecca, we've got 3 missing hikers. College kids who were camping near Bear Creek. Their tents all torn up, but no blood, no bodies, just like Maria," I finished. My stomach felt like ice. Tom nodded. "I hate to ask, but you're our best tracker. Will you help?" I knew. I should say no. Everything in me screamed to stay inside. But I thought about those kids, about their families waiting for news about Maria. "Give me 10 minutes, I said. I packed my grandmother's medicine pouch and her journal, added my flashlight, radio, and emergency flares. Then I saw it. A small, wooden box in the bottom of my grandmother's trunk. Inside was a necklace made of strange dark stones and herbs I didn't recognize. A note fell out. "Wear this when they call to you. It will keep your mind your own." I put it on, feeling silly, but somehow safer. Tom and I headed out as the sun was setting. The forest felt wrong, too quiet, like everything was holding its breath. We followed the trail to Bear Creek, our flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. The campsite was worse than I expected. The tent wasn't just torn, it was shredded. But Tom was right. No blood. Just huge footprints in the mud, leading toward the old mining tunnels. That's when we heard it. Singing. Beautiful singing, like a choir in the distance. Tom's eyes went, weird, just like Maria's had. "It's so pretty," he whispered. "We should go closer." He started walking toward the sound. I grabbed his arm, but he pushed me away. The necklace around my neck felt warm. "Tom, stop!" I yelled. "It's not real." He couldn't hear me, or wouldn't. He just kept walking, following the singing. I ran after him, but he was moving too fast, like something was pulling him forward. We reached the entrance to the mining tunnels. The singing was louder now, but thanks to my necklace, I could hear what it really was. Howling, twisted to sound like human voices. Tom walked into the darkness. I shined my flashlight into the tunnel. There in the beam, I saw them. Dozens of yellow eyes reflecting back at me. Dark shapes moving on 2 legs. And in front of them all, a figure that made my heart stop. Maria. But it wasn't really her. Not anymore. Her eyes glowed yellow like theirs, and when she smiled, I saw fangs. "Hello, little sister," she said in a voice that wasn't quite human. "We've been waiting for you to join our pack." Behind her, the shapes moved closer. I could see them clearly now. Massive wolf-like creatures standing like men, with human hands ending in cruel claws. Tom walked toward them like he was in a trance, did the only thing I could. I threw my emergency flare into the tunnel. The red light filled everything and the creatures howled, but this time in pain. I grabbed Tom's arm and ran, dragging him with me. Behind us, I heard Maria's voice calling, my name, but I didn't look back. We ran until we reached my ranger station. Tom snapped out of it once we were far enough away, but he didn't remember anything. Just like the other survivors we'd found over the years, the few who made it back. But I remembered. I remembered everything. And now I knew the truth. My sister wasn't dead. She was something else now. Something that had been waiting 13 years to come back for me. I looked at my grandmother's journal again. There, on the last page, was something I'd missed before. They can be stopped, but only by one who shares their blood, only by one who refuses their call. I touched the necklace at my throat. Tomorrow would be the full moon. And somehow I knew that's when they'd come for me, when my sister would try to make me join her pack. I had until then to figure out how to stop them, to save Tom, those missing kids, and maybe even Maria, if there was anything left of my sister, to save. I spent that whole night looking through my grandmother's old journals. They were the only thing she left me besides the medicine pouch, and I'd never really read them before. Now, sitting in my ranger station with rain pattering on the roof, I couldn't stop turning the pages. The moon brings them strength, she'd written. They are not wolves and they are not men. They are something the old ones feared, something that walked these hills long before us. My hands trembled as I read about the missing people from her time. Every 13 years when the moon was fullest, hikers would disappear, just like my sister Maria. I remember that day so clearly. Maria and I were checking trail markers, normal ranger stuff. She was ahead of me, laughing about something. Then she just stopped. Like she'd heard something I couldn't hear. She turned around and her eyes were strange, empty somehow. "Do you hear them calling?" she'd asked. Before I could answer, she walked into the trees. I ran after her, but it was like she'd vanished into thin air. We searched for weeks, found nothing. A knock at my door made me jump. It was Tom, the senior ranger, looking worried. "Rebecca, we've got 3 missing hikers, college kids who were camping near Bear Creek. Their tents all torn up, but no blood, no bodies, just like Maria," I finished. My stomach felt like ice. Tom nodded. "I hate to ask, but you're our best tracker. Will you help?" I knew. I should say no. Everything in me screamed to stay inside. But I thought about those kids, about their families waiting for news about Maria. "Give me 10 minutes, I said. I packed my grandmother's medicine pouch and her journal, added my flashlight, radio, and emergency flares. Then I saw it, a small, wooden box in the bottom of my grandmother's trunk. Inside was a necklace made of strange dark stones and herbs I didn't recognize. A note fell out. "Wear this when they call to you. It will keep your mind your own." I put it on, feeling silly but somehow safer. Tom and I headed out as the sun was setting. The forest felt wrong, too quiet, like everything was holding its breath. We followed the trail to Bear Creek, our flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. The campsite was worse than I expected. The tent wasn't just torn, it was shredded. But Tom was right. No blood. Just huge footprints in the mud leading toward the old mining tunnels. That's when we heard it. Singing. Beautiful singing, like a choir in the distance. Tom's eyes went weird, just like Maria's had. "It's so pretty," he whispered. "We should go closer." He started walking toward the sound. I grabbed his arm, but he pushed me away. The necklace around my neck felt warm. "Tom, stop," I yelled. "It's not real." He couldn't hear me. Or wouldn't. He just kept walking, following the singing. I ran after him, but he was moving too fast, like something was pulling him forward. We reached the entrance to the mining tunnels. The singing was louder now, but thanks to my necklace I could hear what it really was. Howling, twisted to sound like human voices. Tom walked into the darkness. I shined my flashlight into the tunnel. There, in the beam, I saw them. Dozens of yellow eyes reflecting back at me, dark shapes moving on 2 legs, and in front of them all, a figure that made my heart stop. Maria. But it wasn't really her. Not anymore. Her eyes glowed yellow like theirs, and when she smiled, I saw fangs. "Hello. Little sister," she said in a voice that wasn't quite human. "We've been waiting for you to join our pack." Behind her, the shapes moved closer. I could see them clearly now. Massive, wolf-like creatures standing like men, with human hands ending in cruel claws. Tom walked toward them like he was in a trance. Did the only thing I could. I threw my emergency flare into the tunnel. The red light filled everything, and the creatures howled, but this time in pain. I grabbed Tom's arm and ran, dragging him with me. Behind us, I heard Maria's voice calling my name, but I didn't look back. We ran until we reached my ranger station. Tom snapped out of it once we were far enough away, but he didn't remember anything. Just like the other survivors we'd found over the years, the few who made it back. But I remembered. I remembered everything, and now I knew the truth. My sister wasn't dead. She was something else now. Something that had been waiting 13 years to come back for me. I looked at my grandmother's journal again. There on the last page was something I'd missed before. They can be stopped, but only by one who shares their blood. Only by one who refuses their call. I touched the necklace at my throat. Tomorrow would be the full moon. And somehow, I knew, that's when they'd come for me. When my sister would try to make me join her pack. I had until then to figure out how to stop them. To save Tom, those missing kids, and maybe even Maria. If there was anything left of my sister to save. I knew, going into those mining tunnels was crazy, but those college kids were down there somewhere, and maybe, just maybe, I could still save my sister. I waited until noon the next day, when the sun was highest and the pack would be at its weakest. That's what my grandmother's journal said. Anyway, I packed my backpack carefully. Flashlight with extra batteries, grandmother's medicine pouch, her journal, some rope, and a first aid kit. I'd also found some dried sage in grandmother's things. She wrote that burning it would keep the pack from reading my thoughts. I stuffed my pockets with it, feeling a little silly but not taking any chances. The forest was different in daylight, but not better. No birds sang. No squirrels ran through the trees. It was like everything normal had left, leaving only the wrong things behind. The entrance to the mining tunnels looked bigger than before. The old wooden support beams were covered in those strange claw marks I'd seen in the cave. Taking a deep breath, I lit some sage and stepped inside. My flashlight beam showed me the way. The main tunnel went down at an angle deeper into the earth. The air got colder with every step. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. My footsteps echoed, no matter how quietly I tried to walk. That's when I heard the whimpering. I followed, the sound down a side tunnel. There, huddled in a corner, was one of the missing college kids, a girl about 20, with dirty blonde hair. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Are you real?" she whispered. "They keep showing me things that aren't real." "I'm real," I said, kneeling beside her. "I'm a park ranger. What's your name?" "Jenny." "My friends." They took my friends deeper in. They were singing, and Matt and Kim just followed them. Their eyes went all weird. "I'm going to get you. Out of here," I promised. "Can you walk?" She nodded. I helped her up, but as she stood, my flashlight caught something that made my heart stop. There were scratch marks on her neck. Not from claws, but from human fingernails, like she'd been trying to get something off her. "Jenny," I said slowly, "how long have you been down here?" She blinked at me. I don't know. What day is it?" "Wednesday." "But that's impossible. We only came camping on Monday night." "It is Wednesday," I said. "Jenny, have you been hearing voices in your head? Seeing things?" She started crying. "They keep trying to get in my head, showing me things, trying to make me join them. But I fought it. I kept fighting it." I touched the necklace at my throat. "That's good. That's really good. Fighting is exactly what you need to do. Now let's—" A howl echoed through the tunnels. Jenny grabbed my arm. "They're coming. They always come when the singing starts." But there wasn't any singing. Not yet. I still had time. "This way," I whispered, leading her back toward the entrance. We moved as quietly as we could, but the tunnel floor was covered in loose rocks that skittered away from our feet. We were almost to the main tunnel when I heard it, that beautiful, terrible singing. Jenny's grip on my arm got tighter. "No," she whimpered. "No, no, no. Jenny, listen to me. Whatever you hear, whatever you see, it's not real. Don't listen to the singing. Think about home. Think about—" But Jenny's eyes had already changed. They were empty now, just like Tom's had been, just like Maria's all those years ago. "They're calling me," she said in a faraway voice. "They say I can be strong, never be afraid again." "Jenny, no." But she was already pulling away from me, walking deeper into the darkness. I grabbed for her, but she was too fast, moving like something was pulling her forward. That's when I saw them. Yellow eyes in the darkness, dozens of them, and Maria stepping out of the shadows, still wearing the same ranger uniform she'd disappeared in. But different now. Wrong. Her movements were too smooth, too animal. "You can't. Save her, little sister. Maria said. Just like you couldn't save me, but you can join us. We're having a party tonight under the full moon. All you have to do is let go. Let us in. The singing got louder. Beautiful voices promising everything would be okay if I just listened. My necklace felt hot against my skin. The Maria I knew would never hurt innocent people, I said. Something flickered in her yellow eyes. Pain? Regret? But it was gone so fast I might have imagined it. The Maria you knew was weak, she snarled. Human. We are so much more now. We are free. The pack moved closer. I could see them clearly now. Massive shapes, half wolf, half human, muscles rippling under black fur. One of them had Jenny in its arms. She wasn't fighting anymore. She was smiling. I backed away slowly, holding up my sage. The creatures hissed at the smell. Last chance, little sister, Maria said. After tonight, we won't ask nicely anymore. I turned and ran. Behind me, their howling laughter echoed through the tunnels. They didn't chase me. They didn't have to. They knew I'd be back, because they still had Jenny. They still had Maria, and tonight was the full moon. Back in my ranger station, I searched through my grandmother's journal like my life depended on it, because it did. The sun was setting and I could feel time slipping away. Somewhere in these pages had to be the answer to saving Jenny, Maria, and the others. The pack's power comes from their connection to each other, I read aloud. Break the connection, break the pack. But only someone with the old blood can do it. Someone who can hear their song but choose not to sing. I touched my necklace, remembering how it had burned hot when they tried to control my mind. Grandmother had known this would happen. She'd been preparing me my whole life. My hands shook as I turned to the last few pages. There were drawings there, circles made of strange symbols, pictures of plants I recognized from our forest, and instructions written in my grandmother's shaky handwriting. The ceremony must be done at the heart of their power, when the moon is highest. You'll need bloodroot that blooms in starlight, bark from the lightning-struck oak, and water from the sacred spring. But most important is the strength to resist their call, because they'll try everything to stop you. I knew the Yar, plants she mentioned. The bloodroot grew in a meadow not far from here. The lightning-struck oak was an old tree near the caves that had survived being hit 3 times. And the sacred spring. That's where Maria and I used to play as kids. I grabbed my backpack and flashlight. The sun was touching the horizon now, painting the sky blood red, as if nature itself was trying to warn me. First stop was the meadow. The bloodroot flowers were easy to spot, glowing soft white in the dying light. But as I reached for them, I heard a twig snap behind me. I spun around. There, at the edge of the meadow, stood a wolf. But not a normal wolf. This one was huge, with eyes that glowed yellow in the darkness. It didn't move toward me. It just watched. I'm not afraid of you, I said, even though my heart was pounding. The wolf's mouth opened in what looked like a smile, showing teeth too long to be natural. Then it threw back its head and howled. The sound changed as it echoed through the trees, becoming words in my head. You should be afraid, little sister. I grabbed the flowers and ran. Behind me, I heard more howls joining the first. The pack was gathering. The lightning-struck oak was next. Its bare branches reached up like skeleton, fingers against the darkening sky. The bark was rough under my hands as I peeled off a piece, trying not to think about the yellow eyes I could feel watching me from the shadows. That's when I heard Jenny's voice. Rebecca, help me. I got away from them. She sounded scared, human. For a second, my heart leaped. But then I remembered how the pack could trick you, could make you see and hear things that weren't real. You're not Jenny, I said firmly. The voice changed, becoming Maria's. Smart girl, but are you smart enough to save them? To save me? I'm going to try, I whispered. Last was the sacred spring, the hardest part. Because that's where Maria and I had spent our last normal day together, splashing in the clear water, laughing about nothing. The spring looked the same as it had back then. Moonlight sparkled on the surface like scattered diamonds, but something dark moved in the shadows around it. Many somethings. I took out my grandmother's medicine pouch, sprinkling dried herbs in a circle around me just like her journal said. The pack growled from the darkness. Silly human magic. Maria's voice echoed in my head. Do you really think that can stop us? Maybe not, I said, filling my water bottle from the spring, but I have to try. The real Maria would understand that. A shape stepped into the moonlight. My sister, but not my sister. Her face was caught between human and wolf, twisted in a snarl. The real Maria was weak, she growled. Just like you. No, I said, backing away with my bottle full of spring water. The real Maria was strong enough to protect me, to love me. That's why they had to take her first, because they knew she'd never join them willingly. Maria's yellow eyes flickered. For just a second I saw something there, a flash of brown of humanity. Then it was gone. Run home, little sister, she said. Run home and hide, because when the moon reaches its peak, we're coming for you. All of us. I clutched my bag of ingredients and ran. Behind me, the pack's howls filled the night air. But I had what I needed now. I just hoped I was strong enough to use it, because in 2 hours the moon would be full, and I'd have to face my sister and the monsters she ran with. One last time. The full moon hung in the sky like a giant spotlight. I stood at the entrance to the mining tunnels, my hands steady as I mixed the ingredients exactly like my grandmother's journal showed. Bloodroot crushed into spring water, bark ground to powder, herbs from the medicine pouch sprinkled on top. In the distance, wolves howled. But these weren't normal wolves. The sound twisted into singing, trying to pull me toward it. My necklace burned against my skin, fighting off their call. Focus, Rebecca, I whispered to myself. You can do this. I drew the symbols from grandmother's journal on the ground with the mixture. The moonlight made them glow slightly, or maybe I was just imagining it. Either way, I had to hurry. The pack would be coming soon. That's when I heard the screaming. It came from deep in the tunnels, someone young and terrified. Matt or Kim, the other missing college students. They were still alive. I grabbed my flashlight and rushed in, following the sound. The beam bounced off wet walls, making shadows dance. The screaming got louder, then suddenly stopped. Hello? I called out. I'm here to help. Help? A voice echoed back. It sounded like Kim. Please. They're changing me. I ran faster, deeper into the tunnels. The air got colder and the walls seemed to press in closer. My flashlight beam caught movement ahead. A small figure huddled against the wall. It was Kim. She looked up at me with normal human eyes full of tears. You came, she whispered. They said nobody would come. I reached for her hand. I'm getting you out of here. Can you walk? She nodded, but as she stood up, something felt wrong. Her hand was too cold, and her shadow on the wall behind her. It wasn't human-shaped. I yanked my hand back just as she lunged, her face transforming into something with too many teeth. I stumbled backward as Kim's body twisted and changed, fur rippling across her skin. So close, she growled in a voice that wasn't hers anymore. You humans always want to help. Makes you so easy to trap. More shapes emerged from the shadows. The pack, and at their head, Maria. My sister smiled with fangs gleaming. Did you really think we wouldn't smell your grandmother's magic? She asked. Wouldn't know you were coming? The pack circled me slowly. Their yellow eyes glowed in the darkness. In their faces I saw Jenny, Matt, and Kim. All changed now. All part of the pack. Their minds weren't their own anymore. You can't fight all of us, Maria said. Join us instead. Feel what real freedom is like. The singing started again. Beautiful and terrible. It filled my head, trying to push out my own thoughts. My necklace burned hot enough to hurt. No, I said through gritted teeth. The real Maria would never want this. Something flickered in her yellow eyes. The real Maria was afraid, alone. We made her strong. You made her a prisoner. I shot back. You took her body and locked away who she really was, but she's still in there. I can feel it. Maria snarled, but I saw her hands shake. You know nothing. I know my sister, and I know she's fighting. You right now. The pack moved closer. I could smell wet fur and something worse. The rotting smell of old mines and older evil. But I stood my ground. I pulled out my grandmother's journal and began to read the words she'd written. Strange words in Cherokee, words that felt like fire in my mouth. The pack howled in pain. Maria's face twisted, shifting between human and wolf like she couldn't hold either shape. Stop, she screamed, but I couldn't tell if it was really her voice or the thing controlling her. I read louder. The symbols I'd drawn at the tunnel entrance began to glow, their light reaching down into the darkness. The pack's howls turned desperate. You'll kill her, Maria's voice shrieked. If you break our connection, she'll die. But I saw something in Maria's eyes, a flash of brown, of humanity. And in that flash, I saw her mouth the words, "Keep going." So I did. I read the last words of my grandmother's ceremony, her final gift to protect her family. Light filled the tunnel, bright as day. The pack's screams echoed off the walls. Their shapes twisted and changed, fur melting away, yellow eyes fading. Jenny, Matt, and Kim collapsed to the ground, human again. And Maria fell to her knees, her yellow eyes locked on mine. But as the light touched her, those eyes changed, brown again, human again. Rebecca, she whispered. And for the first time in 13 years, I heard my sister's real voice. Then she collapsed. The tunnel went quiet, except for the sound of breathing, all human breathing. The pack's power was broken. But had I broken my sister, too? I ran to Maria's side, praying I hadn't been too late. I held Maria in my arms, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. After 13 years, after everything that had happened, I couldn't lose her again. Not like this. Please wake up, I whispered. Please. Her eyes fluttered open, warm brown eyes, human eyes. The same eyes I remembered from when we were kids. Rebecca? Her voice was weak, but it was her voice, really her. What happened? You're safe now, I said, tears running down my face. You're free. Around us, Jenny, Matt, and Kim were waking up too. They looked confused, like people coming out of a bad dream. None of them seemed to remember what had happened to them. Maybe that was for the best. But Maria remembered everything. They kept me prisoner in my own body, she whispered. For 13 years, I watched through my own eyes but couldn't control anything, couldn't stop them from using me to hurt people. She started crying. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I tried to fight them. I tried so hard. I know, I said, holding her tighter. I saw you fighting. Right at the end, you helped me. You told me to keep going. She nodded weakly. Grandmother's ceremony. She knew this would happen, didn't she? She prepared you. She never gave up hope of getting you back, neither did I. A cold wind blew through the tunnel, carrying the last echoes of wolf howls with it. But they were far away now, and getting farther. The pack was gone, their power broken by grandmother's magic and Maria's strength. Can you stand? I asked her. She nodded, and I helped her to her feet. She was shaky but alive. Human. Free. Let's get everyone out of here, I said. We helped Jenny, Matt, and Kim out of the tunnels. They were weak but unhurt. As we stepped out into the moonlight, Maria stopped and looked up at the full moon. It's beautiful, she said softly. I forgot. It could just be beautiful, without the hunger, without the darkness. I took her hand. Welcome home, sis. Later, after we'd gotten everyone safe and called in rescue teams, Maria and I sat in my ranger station. Dawn was breaking over the forest. Birds were singing again, normal, natural sounds returning to a normal, natural world. What do we tell people? Maria asked. The truth, I said. That you were lost and now you're found. The rest? Some stories are better left in the shadows. She nodded, then picked up grandmother's journal. We should keep this safe. In case they ever come back. Do you think they will? Not for a long time, but someday they might try again. And someone else might need to know how to fight them. I touched the necklace at my throat, then took it off and handed it to her. Then you should wear this just in case. She put it on, tears in her eyes. I missed you so much, little sister. I missed you too. Outside, the sun rose over Ozark National Forest. Birds sang, squirrels chattered, and somewhere in the distance a perfectly normal wolf howled. Just another day in the woods. But now I knew what lived in the shadows, what waited in the dark places. And thanks to my grandmother's wisdom and my sister's courage, I knew how to fight it. Most importantly, I had my sister back. After 13 years of darkness, Maria was home, and if the pack ever returned, they'd find us ready. Because that's what family does. We protect each other, no matter what. Some say there are no happy endings in horror stories. But sitting there with my sister, watching the sunrise paint the sky pink and gold, I knew they were wrong. Sometimes the scariest stories can have the happiest endings. You just have to be brave enough to fight for them. I never should have come to Mount Rainier alone. That's what I keep telling myself as I write this down, my hands still shaking, trying to make sense of what happened 3 days ago. But I need to tell this story. Maybe then someone will believe me. Maybe then someone will understand. It started with a phone call from my Uncle Jack, the head ranger at Mount Rainier National Park. Sarah, I need your help, he said, his voice crackling through my cell phone. Some hikers have gone missing and we're short-staffed. You're the best photographer I know. We need pictures for the search and rescue team. I should have said no. The weather forecast showed storms coming, and October in the Pacific Northwest is no joke. But Uncle Jack had always been there for me after Mom died, and I couldn't let him down. Besides, I told myself, it was just going to be a quick trip. Drive up, take some photos, drive back down. The first warning sign came when I pulled into the park's entrance at sunset. The ranger station was empty. No friendly face to greet visitors. No warm lights in the windows. Just a hastily written note taped to the window. Emergency. Contact Park Services. Below it was Uncle Jack's phone number, which I'd already tried calling 20 times on my drive up. No answer. My old Jeep bumped along the road as darkness crept in. The tall pine trees looked like black fingers reaching for the sky, and the mountain. There was something wrong with the mountain. I'd visited Mount Rainier dozens of times since I was a kid, but I'd never seen it look so angry. Dark clouds swirled around its peak like a crown of storms. I parked at Paradise Lodge, the main visitor center where Uncle Jack's office was. The parking lot was empty except for his green Ranger truck and 2 other vehicles. A beat-up blue van and a red pickup truck that had seen better days. The wind howled through the trees, making them creak and groan like they were trying to warn me about something. The motion sensor lights flickered on as I walked to the lodge's entrance, my camera bag bouncing against my hip. That's when I heard it, a low rumble that wasn't quite thunder. It seemed to come from inside the mountain itself, like a giant had just woken up and was stretching. Uncle Jack, I called out, pushing open the heavy wooden door. My voice echoed through the empty lobby. The usual cheerful visitor center, with its nature displays and friendly information desk, looked creepy in the dim emergency lights. Anyone here? The only answer was the tick-tick-tick of the big wall clock and another rumble from the mountain. I found myself holding my breath, straining to hear any human sounds, footsteps, voices, anything. But there was nothing. I pulled out my phone to try calling Uncle Jack again. No signal. No. Of course. That's when I saw the logbook on the front desk, its pages fluttering in a breeze I couldn't feel. The last entry made my blood run cold. October 15th, 1983, 3:47. PMS strange sounds from North Face. T. Williams and Party 4 not back from morning hike. J. Cooper investigating. Radio contact lost. Something's wrong with The entry stopped mid-sentence. The pen that wrote it lay on the desk like someone had dropped it in a hurry. Another rumble shook the building, stronger this time. Outside, the wind picked up, whistling through some gap in the windows. But there was something else in that sound. Something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It almost sounded like words. I spun around, shining my phone's flashlight toward the dark hallway that led to the ranger offices. "Uncle Jack?" I called again, my voice smaller, now. "It's Sarah. I'm here." The emergency lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. In the sudden darkness, I heard footsteps coming from the hallway. Slow, dragging footsteps that didn't sound quite right. And they were getting closer. I stood frozen, my flashlight beam shaking as it pointed down that dark hallway. The footsteps stopped. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, I heard a voice that sounded like my uncle's but wrong, like someone trying to remember how to speak. "Sarah," it said, "you shouldn't have come." My flashlight caught something moving in the darkness. Just a quick shadow, but enough to make me stumble backward. I bumped into the front desk, knocking over a cup of pens that clattered to the floor. "Uncle Jack?" I whispered. "What's going on?" The footsteps came closer, and finally my uncle stepped into the light. He looked terrible. His ranger uniform was dirty, his face pale and tired. But it was definitely him, and I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Sarah, you need to leave. Now." He grabbed my arm, his hand shaking. "The mountain. It's not safe." "I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's happening," I said, pulling away. "Where is everyone? What happened to those missing hikers?" A loud crack of thunder made us both jump. The windows rattled, and my uncle looked up at the ceiling, like he was afraid it might cave in. Okay, he said quickly, leading me to his office. "But we need to talk somewhere safe." His office was a mess. Maps everywhere, coffee cups scattered around, and his radio equipment lying in pieces on the desk. He closed the door behind us and turned on his battery-powered lantern. "3 days ago," he started, his voice low, "we found something in one of the old caves near the north face. Tom Williams, he's one of our senior guides. He was leading a group when they stumbled across it." "Found what?" Uncle Jack pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It looked like an old mining tunnel, but there was something weird about the walls. They were covered in drawings that seemed to glow in the camera flash. "Native American cave paintings," he explained. "Really old ones. But that's not the strange part." He swiped to the next photo, and I felt my stomach drop. The image showed a huge crack in the cave wall, and behind it was a chamber that shouldn't have been there. "We think it was an old ceremonial room," he continued. "But when Tom's group went in to investigate..." He trailed off, his hands shaking as he put the phone down. "What happened to them?" I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "Before," he could answer, "we heard voices from outside, people calling for help. They sounded far away, but clear enough to make out the words. 'Hello? Is anyone there? Please help us. We're lost.' I started to move toward the window, but Uncle Jack grabbed my arm. "Don't," he said. "Those aren't real people." "What do you mean they're not real? We have to help them." "Listen to me, Sarah. Whatever's in that cave, it tricks you. Makes you hear things, see things." Tom and his group, they followed voices just like these. We found their gear scattered all over the north face, but no sign of them. The voices got louder, more desperate. They sounded so real, like actual people who needed help. My heart was pounding. Everything Uncle Jack was saying sounded crazy, but the fear in his eyes was real. Suddenly, the lantern flickered and went out. In the darkness, I heard a sound that made my skin crawl, rocks grinding against each other like the mountain itself was moving. "It's starting again," Uncle Jack whispered. He fumbled in his desk drawer and pulled out an old leather journal. "Here, this belonged to a ranger from 1947. He wrote about something similar happening back then. People going missing, strange sounds." I opened the journal with shaking hands. The first page had a warning written in messy handwriting. "The mountain has secrets, some should stay buried. If you hear the thunder's echo, run." Right then, another rumble shook the building. But this time, I realized why it had sounded so strange earlier. The sound wasn't coming from above us, it was coming from below. The floor trembled under our feet, and in the distance those fake voices started to laugh, a horrible sound that no human could make. Uncle Jack grabbed his emergency pack. "We need to get to the radio tower," he said, checking his flashlight batteries. "It's the highest point in the area. Maybe we can call for help." "But you said the radios aren't working." "The handheld ones aren't. But the main tower has its own power source. It's our only chance." He handed me a flashlight and an extra battery pack. "Stay close to me. And Sarah?" He looked at me seriously. "No matter what you hear, no matter what you see, don't trust it. The only real things here are you and me." The voices outside changed, becoming more familiar. I heard Mom's voice among them, calling my name, even though she'd been gone for 3 years. Uncle Jack was right. Whatever was happening here, it wasn't natural. And as we prepared to leave the safety of his office, I had a terrible feeling that we were about to find out just how dangerous Mount Rainier's secrets could be. The walk to the radio tower should have taken 15 minutes, but nothing was normal anymore. Uncle Jack and I stepped outside into the cold night air. Our flashlight beams cut through the darkness, showing the path ahead. The wind had gotten stronger, and the trees swayed back and forth like they were trying to warn us. "The tower's just past the visitor parking lot," Uncle Jack said, checking his compass. "If we stick to the main path..." A scream cut through the night. A real one this time. It came from the direction of the cave. "That's Kelly." Uncle Jack's face went white. "She was checking the weather stations when... We have to help her." I started moving, but Uncle Jack pulled me back. "Wait," he said. "Remember what I told you. It might not be real." But then we heard it again, and this time I saw someone running through the trees. It was a woman in a ranger uniform, her flashlight beam bouncing wildly as she ran. "Jack, Sarah, run!" she yelled. "It's coming!" Uncle Jack's grip on my arm loosened. "That's really her," he whispered. Then louder, "Kelly, over here!" Kelly sprinted toward us. She was breathing hard, her ranger hat missing and her dark hair wild around her face. When she reached us, she doubled over, trying to catch her breath. "The cave," she gasped. "I found them, Tom and the others. They're alive, but..." She shook her head. "Something's wrong with them. They're different." A branch snapped in the darkness behind her. My flashlight beam caught movement between the trees, several shapes moving our way. They looked like people, but they walked funny, like they weren't sure how their legs worked. "There," Kelly pointed. "That's them." The shapes got closer, and I could finally see them clearly. It was Tom and his missing group, but Uncle Jack was right. Something was very wrong. Their eyes were completely black, and their skin looked like stone in our flashlight beams. "Hello, Jack," Tom said, but his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "We've learned so much. The mountain wants to show you too." More shapes emerged from the trees behind them. I recognized them from the photos in the missing persons reports on Uncle Jack's desk. But these people had been missing for weeks, months, even years. "The tower," Uncle Jack whispered. "Run. Now." We ran. Behind us, those things that used to be people followed, moving faster than they should have been able to. Their footsteps sounded like falling rocks. The wind got stronger and the voices started again. But now they were coming from the ground, the trees, even the air itself. They were telling us to stop, to wait, to join them. My legs hurt and my lungs burned from the cold air. But we kept running. The radio tower was ahead. I could see its red light blinking in the darkness. Then the ground started shaking again. Cracks appeared in the path in front of us and steam hissed up from deep below. The whole mountain seemed to be waking up. "There," Kelly pointed to a maintenance shed near the tower. "We can barricade ourselves inside." We reached the shed just as the first of those stone people emerged from the trees. Uncle Jack slammed the door shut and pushed a heavy metal cabinet against it. Inside, the shed was small but sturdy. Maps covered one wall and old radio equipment sat on dusty shelves. Kelly found some emergency supplies, bottled water, flashlights, and a first aid kit. "What's happening to them?" I asked, trying to catch my breath. "How is this possible?" Uncle Jack pulled out the old journal again. According to this, it's happened before. Every 40 years or so, the mountain wakes up, takes people, changes them. But why? Before he could answer, Kelly gasped. She was looking at an old map on the wall, one that showed the mountain before the national park was created. "Look at this," she said, pointing to some faded writing. "There used to be a village here hundreds of years ago. The people disappeared overnight. The only thing left was a warning carved into a tree. The mountain hungers." Something slammed against the shed door, making us all jump. Outside, those stone voices called our names, promising to show us wonderful things if we'd just open the door. "The radio tower's right outside," Uncle Jack said, checking his watch. "If we can just hold out until dawn." But dawn was hours away. And as another boom of thunder shook the mountain, I realized something terrible. The voices were getting closer, and the walls of the shed were starting to crack. We weren't going to make it until dawn, not unless we figured out what the mountain wanted and how to stop it. And then Kelly noticed something else on the old map. A symbol drawn in red ink, half hidden under other markings. It looked like the same symbols we'd seen in the cave photos. "I've seen this before," she whispered. "In the cave. It's not just a drawing, it's a key." "The key to what?" I asked Kelly, trying to ignore the scratching sounds coming from outside the shed. Kelly's fingers traced the red symbol on the map. "In the cave there was a door, a real stone door with this same marking. We thought it was just decoration, but..." She looked up at us. "What if it's not?" Another slam against the shed wall made us jump. A small crack appeared in the concrete, and a cold wind whistled through it. "They're breaking in," Uncle Jack said, his voice shaking. He shined his flashlight at the wall where the crack was spreading like a spider web. "We need to do something now." I looked at the old journal in my hands and started flipping through pages frantically. There had to be something, some clue about how people survived this before. Then I found it, a page with the same red symbol drawn in the corner. "Listen to this," I said, reading quickly. "The elders said the mountain wasn't always angry. It protected people once until someone stole its heart. A crystal that glowed like frozen fire. They hid it behind the marked door, thinking they could use its power. That's when the mountain started taking people." The whole shed shuddered. Outside, Tom's rocky voice called out, "You can't hide forever. The mountain wants what was taken." "The crystal," Kelly whispered. "That's what makes the mountain angry? All this time it just wanted its heart back?" Uncle Jack grabbed his backpack. "The cave entrance isn't far. If we can get there, find this door." "But those things are out there," I said. "Those things are still people. Somewhere deep inside," Kelly said quietly. "They're victims too. Maybe if we return what was stolen." We didn't have much choice. The shed walls were cracking more every minute, and that weird steam was starting to seep through the floor. Uncle Jack checked his phone's map app. "Okay, the cave is northeast of here. If we go through the woods instead of taking the path..." "Wait," Kelly said. She pulled 3 helmets with lights from a shelf. "We'll need these. And rope." She started, grabbing supplies, moving fast like she'd done this 100 times before. The shed door burst open with a crash of broken metal. We barely had time to grab our stuff before running out the back door into the darkness. The stone people were everywhere, their black eyes reflecting our helmet lights, but they moved slowly like they were waiting for something. The wind carried their whispers. "Follow, follow." We ran through the trees, branches whipping at our faces. The ground rolled under our feet like waves, making it hard to keep our balance. Behind us, those grinding footsteps got closer and closer. Finally, we saw the cave entrance, a dark hole in the mountainside. As we got closer, I saw the drawings Uncle Jack had photographed, glowing faintly like they were lit from behind. "There," Kelly pointed to a wall inside the cave. "The door." She was right. Half hidden behind some rocks was a stone door with the red symbol carved into it. It looked ancient, but when Kelly touched it, it moved slightly. "Help me push," she yelled. Uncle Jack and I pressed our hands against the cold stone. Together we pushed with everything we had. The door slowly scraped open. Behind it was a small room, and in the center, floating in midair, was a crystal about the size of my fist. It glowed with a blue-white light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The mountain's heart, Uncle Jack breathed. I stepped forward to grab it, but Kelly pulled me back. Wait, look at the floor. The ground around the crystal was covered in more symbols glowing red like warning lights. One wrong step and who knew what would happen. Suddenly Tom and the others appeared at the cave entrance. They moved forward slowly, their stone feet scraping against the ground. But they weren't trying to grab us anymore. They were pointing at the crystal. The mountain rumbled again, stronger than ever. Rocks started falling from the cave ceiling. It's now or never, Uncle Jack said. We have to try. I looked at the glowing symbols on the floor, then at the crystal floating in the air. The mountain's heart. All it wanted was to be whole again. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward onto the first symbol. It glowed brighter under my foot, but nothing bad happened. Carefully, I started making my way toward the crystal, choosing each step like I was solving a puzzle. Behind me, I could hear rocks falling, the wind howling, and those strange voices getting louder and louder. But I kept my eyes on the crystal. Was almost there. Just one more step. The ground gave a mighty shake and the cave ceiling started to collapse. "Sarah!" Uncle Jack screamed. "Hurry!" My fingers touched the crystal. It was warm, like holding a small sun. As soon as I grabbed it, the shaking got worse. Way worse. The cave ceiling was coming down in big chunks now. What do I do with it? I shouted over the noise. The stone people, Tom and the others, all pointed to the back of the cave. There was a crack in the wall that went deep into the mountain, glowing with the same blue-white light as the crystal. "That's where it belongs," Kelly yelled. "Sarah, run!" I ran across the symbol-covered floor, not caring about stepping on them anymore. The crystal pulsed faster in my hands like it knew it was going home. Behind me, Uncle Jack and Kelly were trapped by falling rocks. The stone people moved forward, but instead of trying to grab them, they started catching the falling rocks, protecting them. I reached the crack in the wall. It was just big enough for the crystal to fit. My hands shook as I held it up. "Please let this work," I whispered. I pushed the crystal into the crack. For a second, nothing happened. Then the crystal started glowing brighter and brighter until I had to close my eyes. The rumbling stopped. The wind died down. Everything went completely quiet. When I opened my eyes again, the crystal was gone, absorbed into the mountain. The crack had sealed up like it was never there. "Sarah," Uncle Jack called. "Look." I turned around. The stone people were changing. The rocky coating on their skin was cracking and falling off. Their eyes weren't black anymore. They looked normal. Human. Tom fell to his knees, blinking like he was waking up from a long sleep. The others were doing the same thing, looking around in confusion. What happened?" Tom asked in a regular voice. Not that scary grinding sound anymore. "The last thing I remember—" "You're safe now," Kelly said, helping him up. "You're all safe." Uncle Jack checked his phone. "I've got signal." He immediately started calling for help, telling them where to find us. The cave wasn't glowing anymore, but it wasn't dark either. Morning light was streaming in through the entrance. We'd made it through the night. As we helped the rescued people out of the cave, I felt something different about the mountain. It didn't feel angry anymore. It felt peaceful. Later, after the rescue teams had come and gone and everyone was safe at the ranger station drinking hot chocolate, Uncle Jack pulled me aside. "What do we tell people?" I asked him. "About what really happened?" He smiled and handed me the old journal. "The truth, or at least part of it. Sometimes the mountain has secrets, but now we know it wasn't trying to hurt anyone. It just wanted to be whole again. Will it happen again?" I looked up at Mount Rainier, beautiful and calm in the morning. "Son." "I don't think so," Kelly said, joining us. "The heart of the mountain is back where it belongs. That's all it wanted." We stood there watching the sunrise, 3 people who'd seen something incredible, something that would bond us together forever. The mountain had its heart back, and in a weird way, it had given us something too. A reminder that sometimes the scariest things just need to be understood. That was 3 days ago. Life at Mount Rainier National Park is back to normal now. The rescued people are recovering well, though they don't remember much about their time as stone people. Maybe that's for the best. I still have nightmares sometimes about those black eyes and grinding voices, but when I do, I look out my window at the mountain, peaceful and strong against the sky, and I remember what we learned that night. Every mountain has its secrets. Some are scary, some are wonderful, and some are both. But the most important thing is to face them together, to help each other through the dark times until the sun rises again. Uncle Jack says I should stay and help him at the park. After what we went through, I think I will. Someone needs to be here to remember what happened, and to make sure the mountain's heart stays safe this time. Besides, the view from up here, it's not so scary anymore. It's actually kind of beautiful. I never thought the sound of complete silence could make my blood run cold. But here I am, standing in the morning fog of Coconino National Forest, and the silence is screaming at me. My name is Rachel Whitefeather, and I've been a park ranger, here for 8 years. But this morning is different. This morning reminds me of the day my parents disappeared 10 years ago. The radio call came in just as the sun was starting to peek through the trees. 4 hikers hadn't returned to their campsite. Normal enough, people get lost all the time. But the way their friends described it sent chills down my spine. They just stopped talking mid-sentence, the caller said, like someone had pressed a mute button. I found their tent first. Everything was normal. Sleeping bags neatly laid out, breakfast dishes still waiting to be washed, a pot of coffee gone cold. But the silence. God, the silence. No birds, no insects. Not even the wind dared to whisper through the trees. Then I saw the first body. He was lying face up in a small clearing, eyes wide open in terror. But it was his ears that made me stumble backward. Dark blood had trickled down both sides of his face from his ears like he'd heard something so terrible it broke something inside him. I've seen my share of dead bodies in this job, but this was different. I reached for my radio to call it in, but all I got was a weird humming sound. That's when I felt it. A vibration in my chest, like standing too close to a giant speaker. My flute hanging from my belt as always started to vibrate too. Being both a sound engineer and a traditional flute player, I know when something's not right with sound. This was wrong. Very wrong. I found the others nearby. Same thing. Burst eardrums, faces frozen in fear. But what made my skin crawl was how they were positioned. They formed a perfect circle, like they'd been arranged that way. In the center was a small leather pouch, the kind medicine men from my tribe used to carry sacred items. As I knelt to examine it, memories of my parents flooded back. They disappeared while investigating strange sounds in this same forest. The police said they probably got lost, but we never found their bodies. I always knew there was more to the story. The pouch was empty, but it had markings I recognized. Ancient symbols my grandmother once showed me. Warnings about dark spirits that steal voices. I thought they were just stories to scare children. Now I'm not so sure. That's when I heard it, or rather felt it. A deep vibration that made my teeth ache. And in that vibration, I swear I heard voices. Familiar voices. My mother's laugh. My father's call, but twisted, wrong, like a record playing backward. I grabbed my phone to take pictures for evidence, but the screen was dead. Not just out of battery, dead. Like something had sucked the life right out of it. The same thing had happened to my parents' equipment 10 years ago. The sun was fully up now, but the forest stayed dark. And in that darkness, I could feel something watching. Something that didn't just want our voices, it wanted our souls. I needed help. But not just any help. I needed people who would understand what we were dealing with. People who knew the old stories weren't just stories. Whatever killed these hikers was the same thing that took my parents. And this time I was going to find out what it was, even if it meant facing the darkest legends of my people. I made 2 calls that morning. The first was to the tribal police, specifically to Joe Running Bear, my old friend who'd helped search for my parents years ago. The second was to the local medicine man, Grandfather Thomas, who knew more about the old stories than anyone else. "Don't touch anything else until we get there," Joe told me over the crackling phone line. Even the phones were acting weird, making strange buzzing sounds between words. While waiting, I sat in my truck, doors locked, watching the forest. The silence was still there, like a heavy blanket over everything. My hand kept touching the flute, at my belt, a habit I'd had since I was little. Mom had given it to me, saying it would keep the bad spirits away. Right now, I really hoped she was right. An hour later, 3 tribal police vehicles pulled up. Joe stepped out first, followed by 4 other officers. His usually cheerful face was serious. "Just like your parents' case," he said quietly. "No tracks, no signs of struggle, just..." He waved at the strange silence around us. Grandfather Thomas arrived next. He was a small man with kind eyes, but today those eyes were worried. The moment he stepped into the clearing, he stopped. "Something is very wrong here," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The air, it's eating the sounds." He was right. Even our footsteps seemed muffled, like we were walking on cotton instead of crunchy leaves. We split into teams to search the area. I went with Joe and Sarah Blackcloud, another tribal officer. The rest spread out to look for clues. Grandfather Thomas stayed in the clearing, burning sage and singing softly. "Songs of protection," he said. That's when we found it. Half buried under some leaves was an old wooden flute, dark with age. But this wasn't any normal flute. The carvings on it made my skin crawl, twisted faces frozen in screams. "Don't," Grandfather Thomas called out, but Sarah had already picked it up. The sound that came next, I'll never forget it. It was like all the silence suddenly broke. Sarah's mouth opened in a scream, but no sound came out. Her eyes went wide with terror. Then we heard her voice, but it wasn't coming from her. It was coming from the trees, around us, echoing her scream from every direction. Joe grabbed the flute from her hands and threw it down. Sarah collapsed, shaking. When she could finally speak again, her voice was different, hollow, like she was talking through a long tube. "I heard them," she whispered. "All of them. The lost ones. They're trapped. Their voices. They're trapped." Back at the clearing, Grandfather Thomas examined the flute from a distance, never touching it. "This is old medicine," he said. "Dark medicine. Someone has awakened something that should have stayed sleeping." That's when the voices started. Whispers at first, coming from between the trees. Each of us heard something different. I heard my parents calling my name. Joe heard his dead brother. Sarah just covered her ears and cried. "It's starting," Grandfather Thomas said. "The Skinwalker is gathering power. Every voice it steals makes it stronger." "Skinwalker?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Grandmother had told me stories about them. Evil medicine men who could steal your voice, your memories, even your shape. I'd always thought they were just stories to keep kids from wandering into the forest alone. "We need to go to the old sacred sites," Grandfather Thomas said. "There are protections there, things our ancestors left to fight this evil." But as we got ready to leave, all our radios suddenly screeched to life. Through the static, we heard voices, dozens of them, all talking at once. And among them, clear as day, I heard my mother singing the lullaby she used to sing to me as a child. The sun was getting low, painting the forest in red. We had to hurry. Grandfather Thomas said skinwalkers were strongest at sunset, when day and night blur together. Looking at the shadows stretching between the trees, I could swear some of them were moving wrong, like they were alive. We were running out of time. Whatever this thing was, it had taken my parents. Now it was back, hungry for more voices, more souls. And somehow, I knew it was waiting for me. After all, it had my mother's voice. It knew I would come. The sun was setting when we reached the first sacred site. It was just a circle of old stones in a clearing, but Grandfather Thomas said it was special. "This place," he explained, "is where our people used to sing to the spirits. As he spoke, my flute started humming again, like it knew something was coming. We split into 3 groups to set up protection charms around the circle. I was with Joe and another officer named Mike. Sarah stayed close to Grandfather Thomas, still shaking from her encounter with the flute. The last 2 officers, Dave and Robert, took the far side of the clearing. That's when everything went wrong. First, the temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath. Then came the singing. My mom's voice again, but this time it wasn't just her lullaby. It was calling my name, begging for help. I knew it was a trick, but it still made my heart ache. Rachel. Joe grabbed my arm. Look. Between the trees, something was moving. It looked like a person, but wrong. It was too tall, too thin, and it seemed to bend in ways a human body shouldn't. As it stepped into the clearing, I finally saw what a skinwalker really looked like. It wore my mother's face, not like a mask, like it had somehow stolen her face and stretched it over something much bigger. But the eyes were black holes that seemed to swallow light. "Hello, little one," it said in my mother's voice. "I've been waiting so long to see you again." Dave and Robert raised their guns, but before they could shoot, the thing opened its mouth. The sound that came out wasn't human. It was like 1,000, screaming voices all at once. Dave dropped first, blood pouring from his ears. Robert fired 1 shot before he fell, his gun hitting the ground with a dull thud. "Get in the circle," Grandfather Thomas shouted. We ran for the stones as the skinwalker changed shape. Its body twisted and stretched, my mother's face melting away to reveal something ancient and horrible underneath. Joe tried to shoot it, but the bullets passed right through like it was made of smoke. The skinwalker laughed, a sound that made the trees around us shake. "Foolish children," it said. But now it was using my father's voice. "Your ancestors knew better than to fight me. They gave me what I wanted. Fresh voices. Fresh souls. Just like your parents did, Rachel." Suddenly I understood. "You didn't just kill them," I whispered. "You're keeping them. Their voices, their souls, they're trapped inside you." The thing smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. "Smart girl, just like your mother." It took a step toward our circle. "Would you like to hear her last moments?" Before it could continue, Grandfather Thomas started singing. It was an old song, one I remembered from ceremonies when I was little. The skinwalker hissed, taking a step back. "The circle," Grandfather Thomas said between verses. "It can't cross the circle while we sing. Rachel, your flute, play it, now." My hands were shaking as I raised the flute to my lips. I played the song my mother taught me, the one she said would keep bad spirits away. As the notes joined Grandfather Thomas's singing, the skinwalker screamed in rage. But we weren't all safe. Mike had tripped outside the circle. He was crawling toward us when the skinwalker grabbed him. What happened next? I still have nightmares about it. The thing didn't just kill him. It opened its mouth impossibly wide and seemed to breathe in. Mike's body jerked like a puppet, and I heard his voice join the chorus of screams coming from inside the creature. "Keep playing," Grandfather Thomas shouted. "The sound, it's hurting it." He was right. When our music hit certain notes, the skinwalker's form wavered like smoke in the wind. It backed away, dragging Mike's lifeless body with it. "You can't save them," it snarled, using a mix of voices now. "Any of them. But don't worry, Rachel. Soon you'll join your parents. We'll be a family again." Then it melted into the shadows, leaving us alone in the growing darkness. But we could still hear it laughing, the sound echoing from every direction at once. Joe looked at me, his face pale. "Rachel, I'm so sorry. I never believed when your parents—" "I know," I said, still gripping my flute. "But now we know how to hurt it. And maybe we can save them. All of them." Night fell like a heavy blanket over the forest. We were still in the stone circle, none of us brave enough to leave its safety. My throat was sore from taking turns singing with Grandfather Thomas. Every time we stopped, we could hear them, the voices, getting closer. "We need help," Joe said, trying his radio again. All we got was static and whispers. Then, through the noise, we heard Mike's voice, but it wasn't Mike anymore. It was crying for help, begging us to save him. Sarah covered her ears. "Make it stop," she whispered. "Please make it stop." Grandfather Thomas put his hand on my shoulder. "Rachel, there's something I need to tell you about your parents, about why the skinwalker took them." He looked older now, tired. "Your mother, she was like you. She could hear the old songs, the ones that could hurt these creatures. That's why it wanted her. That's why it wants you." A twig snapped in the darkness. We all jumped, shining our flashlights into the trees. Nothing. But the shadows seemed to move, like they were breathing. "The government people are coming," Joe said, checking his phone. "Some special team that deals with weird stuff, like this, but they won't be here until morning." "We won't last until morning," Grandfather Thomas said quietly. "Look." He pointed to the stone circle. Tiny cracks were appearing in the rocks, spreading like spider webs. Our safe place was breaking. "The skinwalker is getting stronger," he explained. "Every voice it takes adds to its power. We need to do something before—" A scream cut through the night. Not from the trees this time, from the town. The creature was hunting new victims. "It's expanding its territory," Grandfather Thomas said. "It'll take the whole town if we don't stop it." I gripped my flute tighter. "Then teach me the songs that can hurt it. My mom knew them. I can learn them too." Grandfather Thomas nodded slowly. "The learning will hurt. These songs, they're not just music. They're old magic. They can protect you, but they can also tear you apart if you're not careful." "I don't care," I said. "That thing has my parents. It has Mike. I have to try." For the next hour, Grandfather Thomas taught me the songs. They were unlike anything I'd ever played before. Some notes made my teeth hurt. Others made the air shimmer like heat waves. Every time I played them, I could feel something pulling at me, like the songs were trying to take pieces of my soul. Joe and Sarah kept watch while we practiced. The voices in the forest got louder, angrier. They didn't like what we were doing. Then Sarah's radio crackled to life. A voice came through. The town sheriff. "Multiple casualties at the high school. Some kind of sonic attack. Victims, found with burst eardrums. Need immediate backup." "It's going after the kids," Joe said, his face pale. "We have to do something." As if answering him, the skinwalker's laugh echoed through the trees. But this time I heard something different in it. A pattern. The same pattern as one of the songs Grandfather Thomas taught me. "Wait," I said, raising my flute. "Listen," I played the pattern back. The laughing stopped instantly. In the silence that followed, we heard the creature moving through the trees, coming closer. "It's afraid," Grandfather Thomas whispered. "The songs, they're not just weapons against it, they're keys. Keys to free the souls it's taken." That's when we heard my mother's voice again, clearer than ever. "Rachel, honey, run." But I didn't run. Instead, I started playing every song Grandfather Thomas had taught me, one after another. The air around us began to vibrate. The cracked stones in our circle started humming. The skinwalker burst from the trees, its body twisting between shapes. My mother, my father, Mike, and faces I didn't recognize. It opened its mouth to scream. But I kept playing. "We need to move," Grandfather Thomas said urgently. "There's a bigger circle, an older one, near the cave where our people used to hold ceremonies. If we can get there, the songs will be stronger." I finished, understanding. "But how do we get there with that thing hunting us?" Joe checked his gun. "We'll have to run. Sarah and I will hold it off." "No," I cut him off. "No more sacrifices. I have a better idea." I touched my flute. "Mom always said this would protect me from bad spirits. Now I know why. We go together and we don't stop playing. Not even for a second." In the darkness, the skinwalker howled. It knew what we were planning. But for the first time since this started, I wasn't afraid. I finally understood what I had to do. "Okay," I said, gripping my flute. "Let's go save my parents. The night was at its darkest as we ran through the forest. My flute led the way, its song creating a bubble of safety around us. Joe and Sarah flanked me with their flashlights, while Grandfather Thomas followed, singing the old protection songs. Behind us, the skinwalker's screams got closer and closer. "There!" Grandfather Thomas pointed to a path leading up a hill. "The sacred cave is just ahead." As we ran, I kept playing the songs, even though my lips were getting tired and my fingers were starting to shake. Every time I hit certain notes, I could hear the voices trapped inside the skinwalker cry out, like they were trying to break free. The creature was getting desperate. It threw everything it had at us. First came my dad's voice, begging me to stop. Then Mike's voice screaming in pain. The skinwalker even tried using my own voice, calling out to the others for help. "Don't listen," I shouted between notes. "It's trying to trick us." We were almost to the cave when Sarah stumbled. The moment the music's protection faded around her, shadows wrapped around her legs like ropes. She screamed as they started pulling her back. Joe grabbed one of her arms and I grabbed the other. The shadows were strong, but we were stronger. With one hard pull, we got her free. But our break from the music had given the skinwalker its chance. It rose up in front of the cave, entrance bigger than ever. In the flashlight beams, I could see faces moving under its skin, dozens of them all screaming silently. My parents' faces were there too, reaching out like they were trapped behind glass. "The cave!" Grandfather Thomas shouted. "The symbols on the walls. They'll make your song stronger." The skinwalker knew it too. It threw its head back and let out a sound that shattered our flashlights and made the ground shake. Joe and Sarah fell to their knees, blood trickling from their ears. Even Grandfather Thomas stumbled, but I kept playing. Each note was like fire in my chest now. The old songs were using my energy, my life force, to power them. Grandfather Thomas had warned me this might happen. The songs could kill me if I wasn't careful. I didn't care. I could see my mom and dad's faces in the creature's twisted body. They were still in there, still alive, in some horrible way. I had to save them. "Rachel, stop," Joe shouted. "It's killing you." He was right. My vision was getting blurry and I could taste blood in my mouth. But then something amazing happened. From inside the skinwalker, I heard my mother's voice. Not the creature pretending to be her, but her real voice. She was singing the same song I was playing. One by one, other voices joined in. My father, Mike, all the souls the creature had taken over the years. They were singing with me, fighting from the inside while I fought from the outside. The skinwalker screamed in pain and rage. Its body started to crack, light shining through the gaps like it was breaking apart from the inside. The cave. Grandfather Thomas was pulling himself up. "Rachel, we have to get to the cave, the symbols." I took one step toward the cave, then another. Each step felt like walking through deep water. The skinwalker tried to stop me, but every time it reached for me, the songs pushed it back. Finally, I made it to the cave entrance. The walls were covered in ancient paintings that seemed to move in the dim light. As soon as I started playing near them, the symbols began to glow. The song changed. I wasn't just playing it anymore. The cave was playing it too. The symbols hummed with power, adding their own voice to the music. The sound filled everything, growing bigger and bigger until I thought my heart would burst. The skinwalker made one last try to stop us. It threw all its stolen voices at once, creating a wall of sound that felt like it would tear the world apart. But our song was stronger. With a sound like breaking glass, the creature's body began to tear open. Light poured from the cracks, and with it came the voices, all the souls it had stolen over the years. They flew past us like shooting stars, finally free. I saw my parents among them. Just for a moment, they stopped in front of me. I felt their love, their pride, their goodbye. Then they were gone, along with all the others, their souls finally at peace. The skinwalker collapsed in on itself, shrinking down to nothing but a shadow that the morning sun quickly erased. It was over. Dropped to my knees, the flute falling from my numb fingers. Joe caught me before I hit the ground. Everything hurt, and I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open. Is it... Sarah's voice was shaky. Is it really gone? Grandfather Thomas nodded slowly. Its power is broken. The souls it took are free. He looked at me with sad, proud eyes. You did it, Rachel. You saved them all. As the sun rose over the forest, I heard birds singing for the first time since this all began. Normal, natural sounds returning to the world. But in that morning air, I swear I could still hear my mother's lullaby, carried on the wind like a gentle goodbye. 3 days later, I sat on my cabin's porch, watching the sunset over the forest. My flute lay in my lap, still warm to the touch. It hadn't cooled down since that night, like it held some of the power from our battle with the skinwalker. The official story was simple: a gas leak at the high school, some tragic accidents in Nabi, the woods, and a few cases of mass hysteria. That's what the government team told everyone when they finally showed up. They had badges from some agency I'd never heard of, and they were very good at explaining away things that couldn't be explained. But the people who were there, who saw what really happened, we knew the truth. Joe stopped by every day to check on me. Today he brought coffee and sat quietly beside me for a while before speaking. The families of the victims, he said softly. They're asking questions about their loved ones, about what really happened. I nodded slowly. What are you telling them? The truth, or at least the part of it they can handle. That their families are at peace now, that they're not trapped anymore. He looked at me. It helps, I think, knowing they're free. Sarah had quit the tribal police. Last I heard, she was staying with her grandmother, learning the old ways. The sound of the skinwalkers. Voices had changed her. She said she could still hear echoes of them sometimes, but they were getting fainter. Grandfather Thomas visited me yesterday. He brought me some old books, stories and songs passed down through generations. You have the gift, he told me, like your mother did. These will help you understand it better. The books told stories of other creatures like the skinwalker, other dark things that lived in the shadows of our world. They were still out there, waiting. But now we knew how to fight them. My ears were still sensitive to certain sounds, and sometimes I caught whispers on the wind that didn't sound quite natural. The doctors said I might never fully recover from what the songs did to me that night. Using that much power had left its mark. But I didn't regret it. Not for a second. The hardest part was accepting that my parents were really gone. For 10 years, I'd held on to hope that they were somehow still alive, that I could save them. Now I knew the truth. They had been trapped, suffering, all that time. But they were free now. At peace. That had to be enough. I picked up my flute and played a few notes. Just normal ones, not the powerful ancient songs. The sound carried through the evening air, clear and natural. Birds sang back, and somewhere in the forest, a wolf howled. Normal. Sounds. Safe sounds. But I kept the old songs ready just in case. I had Grandfather Thomas's books to study and my flute to protect me. If another skinwalker ever came to our forest, or something even worse, I would be ready. Joe stood, up to leave. You know, he said, your parents would be proud of you. I smiled, touching the flute gently. I know. I think they were there at the end, helping me fight it, and now they're watching over us, making sure we're safe. As the last light faded from the sky, I played my mother's lullaby one more time. The forest seemed to grow quiet, listening. But this time the silence wasn't scary. It was peaceful, like the whole world was holding its breath to hear the song. Some people say the Skinwalker's cave is still humming with power, that on quiet nights, you can hear the old songs echoing. From deep inside, maybe they're right, but those songs aren't scary anymore. They're a reminder that even in the darkest places, there's always hope. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to face the darkness, you can help others find their way back to the light. On quiet nights, When the moon is full and the wind whispers through the trees, I still patrol the forest. My flute hangs at my side, ready as always. Things have changed since that night with the skinwalker. I've changed. The hikers call me the musical ranger now. They don't know why I always carry a flute, or why I stop to listen so carefully to the forest sounds. They don't see me testing the air with soft notes when things get too quiet. And that's okay. Some secrets are better left untold. Last week, a child went missing near the old cave. Everyone else thought she'd just wandered off, but I knew better. The silence around the search area was wrong, just like that night a year ago. But this time, I was ready. I found her before anything else did. When she asked me how I knew where to look, I just smiled and played her a happy tune on my flute. She doesn't need to know about the shadow I saw slinking away when my notes hit the air, or how the forest held its breath until I was sure we were safe. Grandfather Thomas says there will always be dark things in this world, but now we have a new generation of protectors. Sarah is teaching her daughter the old songs. Joe's son is learning to listen for the wrong kinds of silence. And me? I'm teaching a small group of young rangers how to really hear the forest. Some nights, I dream about my parents. Not the horrible memories of their voices trapped in the skinwalker, but good dreams. Mom is playing her flute and Dad is telling his silly jokes. They're at peace. And as long as I'm here, keeping watch with their song in my heart, no other family will have to go through what we did. The forest is calling. Time for my night patrol. My flute warms at my side, ready to protect anyone who might need help in the darkness. Because that's what I am now. Not just a park ranger, but a guardian of the border between our world and the shadows. And this time, the shadows are the ones who should be afraid. I've seen a lot of death in my life. As a Marine Scout sniper in Korea, I thought I'd seen the worst humans could do to each other. But what I found that morning in Olympic National Park wasn't human. Not even close. The bodies were arranged like some sick piece of artwork. 3 of them laid out in a perfect triangle under the ancient trees. I'd gotten the call at dawn. 3 missing hikers, last seen 5 days ago. I just didn't expect to find them like this. My name is James Harrison, though everyone calls me Jim. I'm a park ranger here, and finding missing people is what I do best. My wife Sarah used to say I had a 6th sense for tracking, before cancer took her 2 years ago. Sometimes I still reach for her side of the bed in the morning, only to find cold sheets. But this scene, it was different. 25 years, as a ranger, and I'd never seen anything like it. The bodies weren't just killed. They were taken apart piece by piece, while they were still alive. And the way they were positioned, it was like someone or something was trying to send a message. I crouched down, my knees protesting. 47 isn't exactly young anymore. That's when I saw it. A strange silvery fur caught on one of the victim's clothes. But when I reached out to touch it, the fur just vanished, like smoke in the wind. A chill ran down my spine, the kind I hadn't felt since my sniper days when I knew someone had me in their sights. I was still trying to make sense of it when Tom Whitecloud, one of the local tribal elders, showed up at the scene. One look at the bodies and all the color drained from his weathered face. "The tall one who walks in dreams," he whispered, making some kind of sign with his hands. "You found its feeding ground, Jim." I've known Tom for 15 years. He's not the superstitious type, but his hands were shaking as he spoke. "What do you mean, Tom?" I asked, but he was already backing away from the scene. "Listen to me carefully, Jim," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is just the beginning. It's awake now and it's hungry for the kind of pain that lives in men's souls." He looked me straight in the eyes. "It will come for you, Jim, because of what you carry inside. The grief, it can smell it." I wanted to laugh it off, tell him he'd been reading too many scary stories, but 25 years in these woods had taught me one thing. Sometimes the old legends have teeth. I radioed for backup and started taking photos of the scene, but my mind kept going back to that silver fur and the way it disappeared, to the precise, almost surgical way the bodies had been arranged, and to Tom's words about something that walks in dreams. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning of my nightmare. A nightmare that would force me to face not just whatever was hunting in my woods, but the darkest memories of my own past. And some memories like the thing that made those marks have very sharp teeth indeed. Looking back now, I wish I'd walked away that morning. Called in sick. Let someone else handle it. But I didn't. And now I'm one of the few people alive who knows the truth about what lives in the ancient grove. Though sometimes in my darkest moments I wonder if I'm really alive at all. Because once you've seen the elder, once its amber eyes have looked into your soul, you're never quite the same again. The next morning, I put together my search team. 5 people I trusted, though looking back I wish I hadn't brought any of them. There was Marcus Willis, our best tracker besides me. Lisa Chen, the team medic. Brothers Mike and Steve Cooper, who knew these woods like their own backyard. And Peter Reynolds, a young ranger fresh out of training. His excitement reminded me of myself 20 years ago. If I'd known what would happen to him later. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We started our hike at dawn. The morning was quiet. Too quiet. Usually these woods are full of bird songs and squirrel chatter, but not that day. It felt like the whole forest was holding its breath. Something's not right, Marcus said, stopping to check his compass. The animals are avoiding this area. He was right. I'd noticed it too, but didn't want to spook the others. We kept walking, following an old trail I'd never seen marked on any map. That's when we found the first stone. It was about waist high, covered in moss, but someone had cleaned a small patch. There were words carved into it, not just in English, but in other languages too. Some looked ancient. Lisa wiped more moss away and read the English part out loud. Turn back. It feeds here. Feeds? What feeds here? Peter asked, his voice shaking, a little. I didn't answer. I was too busy staring at something in my hands, an old leather notebook I'd found tucked behind the stone. The cover said, Ranger's Log, 1932. We sat down while I read it. The writer was a ranger named Thomas Morton. He wrote about finding dead hikers, too, arranged the same way as the ones I'd found. But the last few pages were different. The handwriting got messy, desperate. He wrote about seeing something huge, in the woods, something with glowing amber eyes. The final entry just said, it shows you things, terrible things. God help me, it's coming. That's where it ended. Maybe we should go back, Steve said. Even Mike, who never got scared of anything, looked worried. But we had a job to do. 3 dead hikers needed justice. So we pushed on, deeper into the grove. That's when Marcus started acting strange. We'd stopped for water near this massive old tree, the biggest I'd ever seen. Marcus walked up to it, touched the bark, and just froze. Marcus, I called out. You okay? He turned around slowly, and I knew something was wrong. His eyes were different, wild, scared. He started screaming about the silver death and how it was in his head. Before we could stop him, he grabbed Lisa's medical kit and started throwing things at us. His face, I'll never forget his face. Pure terror. It's coming, he screamed. Can't you see the patterns? They're moving, they're alive. It took 3 of us to hold him down. He kept fighting, kept screaming about silver patterns and voices in his head. We had to tie him up with rope from my pack to keep him from hurting. Himself or us. We made camp right there. Couldn't move Marcus in his condition. As the sun set, the temperature dropped fast. Too fast for summer. Our breath came out in clouds like winter morning frost. None of us said it, but we all felt it. Something was watching us. Something old. Something patient. I took first watch, sitting near our campfire. The flames didn't seem to push back the darkness like they should. Instead, the shadows seemed to grow deeper, move in ways shadows shouldn't. That's when the thunder started, but there wasn't a cloud in the sky. I checked my watch, 11:47 p.m. In a few hours, I would learn why Tom Whitecloud's hands had been shaking, why Marcus went crazy, and why that ranger from 1932 never finished his last entry. The elder was coming, and it was hungry for more than just our bodies. It wanted something worse. Our memories, our pain, our fear. I just wish I'd understood that before the screaming started. The thunder got louder, but the sky stayed clear. Marcus was still tied up, mumbling to himself. The others huddled around, the fire, jumping at every sound from the dark woods. That's when I smelled it, like wet fur and old caves, and something else. Something that reminded me of hospital rooms in Sarah's last days. "Jim?" Lisa whispered. "Do you hear that?" I did. Footsteps. Heavy ones making the ground shake slightly. But they came from all directions at once, like whatever was out there was everywhere. The fire flickered, then went out completely. Just died, like someone had thrown a blanket over it. And in the darkness, I saw them. 2 amber eyes, glowing like hot coals, way too high up. They had to be at least 12 feet off the ground. "Nobody move," I whispered. But it was too late. Mike screamed first. He was staring at nothing, but his face showed pure horror. "No, no, please. I can't watch this again." He was seeing something. We couldn't. Then I saw her. Sarah, standing right there in the darkness. She looked exactly like that last day in the hospital. Pale, thin, in pain. But she was walking toward me, reaching out. "Jim," she said. "Why didn't you save me?" I knew it wasn't real. Knew it was some kind of trick. But knowing didn't help. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a fist. "It's not real," I shouted, to the others. "Whatever you're seeing, it's not real." But Steve wasn't listening. He was backing away from something only he could see, tears running down his face. Before anyone could stop him, he turned and ran straight off the cliff edge, behind us. His scream ended too quickly. The thing in the darkness moved closer. Now I could see more than just its eyes. It was huge, covered in black silver fur that seemed to move and swirl like oil on water. And those patterns, they weren't random. They were like pictures, showing things. Terrible things. Lisa suddenly grabbed her medical scissors. Her eyes were blank like she was sleepwalking. "Make it stop," she whispered. "I can't see this anymore." Before any of us could reach her, she used the scissors on herself. I won't describe what happened next. Peter was crying, curled up in a ball. "Mom? Dad? Why are you looking at me like that?" The creature, the elder, was fully visible now. Its face wasn't like a normal Bigfoot from the stories. It was ancient, intelligent, evil, and it was smiling. That's when I noticed something strange. The patterns in its fur. Whenever they showed a memory, the fur seemed to glow brighter, like it was feeding on our pain. I grabbed my flashlight and shined it at the patterns. The elder stepped back just a little. The light seemed to disrupt whatever power it was using. "The silver!" Marcus suddenly yelled, his voice clearer than it had been for hours. "The patterns are how it gets in your head. Don't look at them." The elder roared, a sound that shook pine needles from the trees. But now I knew something about it, something that might help us survive. "Everyone close your eyes," I shouted. "Don't look at the fur." Mike was still crying, lost in whatever vision the elder was showing him. But Peter and Marcus listened. The moment they closed their eyes, they stopped shaking. I kept my flashlight pointed at the elder, disrupting its patterns. It backed away, moving between the trees like a shadow. The thunder faded. When the sun rose, we found Steve's body at the bottom of the cliff. Lisa was gone. Mike was alive, but his mind was somewhere else. He just kept staring at nothing, rocking back and forth. "What do we do now?" Peter asked. His voice sounded older, like he'd aged years in one night. "We get out of here," I said. "We get help." But as we packed up camp, I saw more silver fur on the ground. And even in daylight, the pattern seemed to move. We started walking, but I had this terrible feeling. A feeling that the elder wasn't done with us. That last night was just a taste of what it could do. I was right. But I didn't know then that what waited for us deeper in the woods would make last night seem like a sweet dream. Because now the elder knew our fears, knew our pain. And it was just getting started. I checked my compass to guide us back, trying to ignore how the needle kept spinning wildly. We had to get out. But somehow, I knew we were already lost. Not just in the woods, but in something bigger, something older. And the day was getting darker way too fast. We'd been walking for hours, but something was wrong. The sun was in the wrong place. No matter which direction we went, we kept ending up back at the same clearing. "It's playing with us," Marcus said. He was better now, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Like a cat with mice." Mike was still lost in his own world, following us like a robot. Peter stayed close to me, jumping at every snapped twig. That's when we found the cave. It wasn't natural. The entrance was too perfect, like a doorway carved into the rock. Ancient symbols were scratched around it, the same kind we'd seen on those warning stones. "We shouldn't go in there," Peter whispered. He was right. But I had this feeling, like the answers we needed were down there. I took out my flashlight and stepped inside. The walls were smooth, like they'd been polished. Our footsteps echoed weirdly, like the cave was bigger than it should be. The air smelled old, like a museum basement. That's when my light hit the first skull. It wasn't alone. The whole wall was covered with them. Hundreds, maybe thousands of skulls. Some looked ancient, turning brown with age. Others were white, newer. All of them were arranged in perfect patterns like a giant piece of art. "Oh God," Peter said. "Look at the dates." Someone had carved dates into the rock under each skull. The oldest I could find said 1847, the newest, last week. But that wasn't the worst part. Between the skulls were papers, photos, diary pages, all protected in plastic bags like some kind of twisted museum. I pulled out one page. It was from 1923. It doesn't just kill. It feeds on our suffering, makes us relive our worst moments, over and over until we break. The more we hurt, the stronger it gets. Another note from 1976. There's more than one creature out there. Smaller ones. They do the elders hunting. If you see silver fur, they're already watching. As if on cue, we heard something scraping in the darkness behind us. Our lights caught movement. Something big, but not as big as the elder. It walked, on two legs covered in silver-black fur. "Run!" I yelled. We ran deeper into the cave. Stupid, I know, but we panicked. The tunnel opened into a huge round room. More skulls, more notes. And in the center, a stone table stained dark brown. Marcus pointed up. "Look!" The ceiling was covered in paintings. They showed people in old clothes and suits and modern jackets, all running from a huge figure with glowing eyes. The paintings went in a circle telling a story. They showed how the elder had been here forever, feeding on people's fear and pain. Then we heard them, scraping sounds from every tunnel. More creatures were coming. "The symbols," Marcus suddenly said, pointing at the wall. "Like the ones outside. The natives used them for protection." He was right. There was a whole section of wall covered in Native American drawings. They showed people using mirrors and symbols to fight back. I pulled out my survival mirror, the kind you use to signal for help. Just in time. They came from all the tunnels at once. 5 or 6 creatures like smaller versions of the elder. But their fur didn't have the same moving patterns. They were just hunters. I caught one in the mirror's reflection. It screamed, a sound that made my teeth hurt, and backed away. "The mirrors!" I shouted. "They can't stand their own reflection." Peter and Marcus pulled out their phones using the black screens as mirrors. The creatures wouldn't come near the reflections. But Mike. Poor Mike was still lost in his head. He just stood there as one of the creatures grabbed him. We tried to reach him, but it was too late. The thing dragged him into a dark tunnel, his screams echoing until they just stopped. We ran. Up tunnels, through rooms full of bones, past walls of skulls, always checking behind us with our mirrors. Finally, we saw light. The cave entrance. We burst out into daylight, but something was wrong. The sun was setting. We'd been down there for hours. And in the growing darkness, I saw those amber eyes again, watching from the trees. The elder had been hurting us, I realized, learning about us. And now it knew exactly what we feared most. Night was coming. And this time our little mirrors might not be enough to save us. "Jim," Peter said, his voice shaking. "What do we do now?" I looked at our small group. Just 3 of us left now. The sun was almost gone, and somewhere in the darkness, the elder was waiting. "We make a stand," I said, "right here." But as the last sunlight faded, I wondered if I'd just sentenced us all to death. Because now I understood what the elder really was. Not just some monster, but something that had been practicing the art of fear for hundreds of years. And night was its favorite time to feed. The darkness came fast. We stood in a small circle, backs to each other, holding our mirrors out like shields. Marcus had found some branches and made torches. The fire helped, but not much. "They're coming," Peter whispered. He was right. I could hear them moving in the trees. Not just the smaller creatures, but something bigger. The elder was out there, too. Then the thunder started again. The same strange thunder from before with no clouds in the sky. But this time I understood what it really was. The elder's laugh. "You've learned much," a voice said in my head. It wasn't like a normal voice. It felt old, like rustling leaves and grinding stones. "But knowledge won't save you." The elder stepped into our torchlight. It looked different now. More solid, more real. Those patterns in its fur were swirling faster, showing flashes of faces. I recognized some of them from the photos in the cave. "So many fears," it said, still in our heads. "So many precious memories. Your pain makes me stronger. Your fear makes me grow." "Why?" I asked. My voice sounded small in the darkness. "Why do you do this?" The elder smiled, a terrible sight that I'll never forget. "Why do humans eat? Why do they breathe?" Its amber eyes fixed on me. "I feed, I grow, I am eternal." Then it reached out and touched something in the air, like it was pulling on an invisible thread. Suddenly I was back in the hospital room with Sarah. Not a memory this time. It felt real. I could smell the antiseptic, hear the beeping machines. "Stop," I whispered. "But this is what you carry," the elder said. "This beautiful pain. Let me taste it again." Marcus's scream snapped me back to reality. He was on his knees, staring at nothing, his mirror dropped in the dirt. The elder's fur patterns had him trapped in his own worst memories. "The mirrors," I shouted. "Use the mirrors." Peter raised his phone screen, trying to catch the elder's reflection, but one of the smaller creatures knocked it from his hand. We were losing. Marcus was lost in his visions. Peter was backing away from 2 of the creatures, and the elder just kept coming closer, those patterns in its fur showing more and more terrible things. That's when I remembered something from the cave paintings. The natives hadn't just used mirrors, they'd used the elder's power against it. I had an idea. A terrible one. "Peter," I called out. "When I say run, you run, don't look back." "What? No, I won't leave you." "That's an order, Ranger." The elder was very close now. I could see every shifting pattern in its fur, every horrible memory it had. Collected. But I didn't look away. Instead, I thought about Sarah. About her last moments. About all the pain I'd carried since then. "You want my pain?" I said to the elder. "Come and get it." I stared straight into its eyes and opened my mind. Let all the grief, all the hurt, all the darkness pour out. The elder's smile grew wider. "Yes," it whispered in my head. "Give it to me." But I wasn't done. As it fed on my pain, I reached for my mirror. "Peter, run." Now, I heard him running away through the trees. Good kid. Smart kid. The elder was distracted, busy feeding on my memories. It didn't notice me raising the mirror until it was too late. I shoved the mirror right in its face. But I didn't just show it its reflection. I showed it my pain reflected back through its own power. The scream that came out of the elder's mouth wasn't thunder this time. It was pure rage. The patterns in its fur went crazy, showing thousands of memories all at once. For a second, I saw everything. All the people it had killed, all the fear it had eaten, all the pain it had collected for hundreds of years, and now it was all turning back on itself. The elder stumbled backward, clawing at its own fur. The smaller creatures started shrieking, running in circles like confused dogs. "You dare?" the elder roared in my head. "You dare use my own feeding against me?" "Yeah," I said, "and I've got centuries of pain to show you." I kept the mirror up, kept pushing every hurt memory I had through it. The elder's fur started smoking, those terrible patterns burning away, but I knew I couldn't kill it. The cave paintings had shown that. The elder was too old, too powerful to die, so I did the only thing I could. I kept reflecting its power back until it finally backed away into the darkness. The smaller creatures followed it, their shrieks fading into the night. Marcus was still on the ground, but he was breathing. The elder's power had knocked him out, but he was alive. I waited until the sun came up before trying to find our way out. Peter had made it. We found him at the ranger station, already organizing a rescue team. But something was different now. I could feel it in my head. A connection. Like a dark thread connecting me to the elder. I can sense it sometimes, when it hunts. Know when it's feeding. But I can't stop it. Can't save the people it takes. All I can do is write this story. Hope that someone reads it and believes it, because the elder is still out there. Still hunting. Still feeding. And those patterns in its fur? They're still moving, showing all the fears and pain it's collected, including mine. That was 3 months ago. I retired from the ranger service after that night. Couldn't really explain to them why, but they understood. Something about my eyes, they said. Like I'd seen things no one should see. They never found Mike's body. Or Lisa's. Steve's, they found, at the bottom of the cliff. The official report calls it a hiking accident. What else could they call it? Marcus quit too. He moved to Arizona. Said he needed somewhere with no big forest around. Can't blame him. He still calls sometimes, usually late at night when the memories get bad. Peter stayed on as a ranger, but he only works the safe trails now. The tourist spots. He's smart about it. We meet for coffee every week, but we never talk about that night. Some things are better left in the dark. The grove is off limits now. I made sure of that. Put up all sorts of warning signs. Told them we found dangerous sinkholes. But signs don't stop everyone. Sometimes I sense the elder feeding and I know another hiker didn't read the warnings. That's the worst part. This connection I have with it now. Like a spider web stuck to my mind that I can't brush away. When the elder hunts, I feel it. When it feeds on someone's fears, I taste them too. Last week, I felt it catching a young couple who went camping in the wrong spot. Their fears tasted like metal and tears. I sat in my cabin all night, clutching my mirror, feeling helpless. I've tried telling other rangers, park services in other states. Even wrote to some scientists. But who's going to believe a story about a giant creature that eats people's fears? They'd think I was crazy. Then 2 days ago, I got a letter. No return address. Inside was a page torn from an old book, yellowed with age. It showed a map of the United States with red dots marked all over it. Next to each dot were dates, hundreds of them going back centuries, and I recognized the handwriting on the map. It was the same as in that ranger's journal from 1932. Those dots, they're feeding grounds, other places where things like the elder live. The letter only had one line of text. Now you know. You're not alone. I keep thinking about those dots, on the map. About other monsters out there feeding on fear and pain. About other people like me, connected to them, feeling helpless while they hunt. I've started writing everything down. Everything we learned about the elder. About the mirrors, the symbols, the ways to fight it. Maybe someday someone will need this information. Maybe it'll help them survive. Peter asked me yesterday why I stay here so close to the grove. Why not move away? Try to break this connection with the elder. I told him the truth. Someone needs to watch. Someone needs to remember. Someone needs to warn others, even if they don't believe the warnings. Besides, you can't run from some things. The elder taught me that. Some fears, some memories, some connections, they stay with you forever. So I sit here in my cabin, writing this story. Outside, the sun is setting. The woods are getting dark, and somewhere out there in the ancient grove, something with amber eyes is waking up. Something with patterns in its fur that show hundreds of years of stolen fears. If you're reading this, stay away from the grove. Stay away from any grove that feels too quiet, too old, too wrong. But if you do find yourself out there, and you hear thunder on a clear night, remember what I've told you. Remember the mirrors. Remember the symbols. And whatever you do, don't look at the patterns in its fur, because once it knows your fears, it never forgets them, and neither will you. James Harrison, former Park, Ranger Olympic National Park. Note found. Paperclip to the last page. P.S. Sometimes at night I think I see silver fur outside my window, and the patterns in it, they're starting to look familiar, like memories I used to have, like fears I used to own. I don't know if I'm still completely human anymore, not after being connected to that thing for so long. But at least I can still write, still warn others. And as long as I can do that, the elder hasn't completely won. Not yet. The dead cow was the third one this week, and something about it made my skin crawl. I've been a park ranger in the Ozark National Forest for 12 years now, and I've seen my share of animal attacks. Mountain lions, bears, even the occasional pack of coyotes. But this was different. The cow wasn't just killed, it was torn apart like paper, and those tracks around it, they were like wolf prints, but massive. Each one was bigger than my hand. My name's Bill McCarthy, and after serving as a medic in Vietnam, I thought I'd seen the worst this world had to offer. Today, kneeling beside those tracks in the dying light of dusk, I wasn't so sure anymore. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky blood red. A cool October breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the metallic smell of blood and something else. Something that reminded me of wet dog, but worse. Much worse. I pulled out my flashlight as darkness crept in. The beam caught something, unusual near the tree line, drag marks leading into the forest. Following them, my breath caught in my throat. There, half hidden under fallen leaves, was what looked like a human arm, but not quite. The fingers were too long, the nails curved into claws, and the skin seemed to be caught between human flesh and thick, dark fur. My hands started shaking, bringing back memories of Vietnam I'd rather forget. I took a deep breath, trying to push down the familiar panic rising in my chest. The doctors called it PTSD, but right now those old combat instincts might be exactly what I needed. I pulled out my notebook, hands steadier now, and started documenting everything. The position of the remains, the strange tracks, the timing. This was the third attack this month, and something clicked in my mind. They all happened as the moon grew fuller. Tonight would be another full moon. A twig snapped somewhere in the darkness, and I spun around, my hand instinctively reaching for the revolver on my hip. The forest had gone dead silent. No crickets, no owls, nothing. Just the sound of my own breathing and the pounding of my heart. My mother used to tell me stories passed down from her Cherokee ancestors, tales of creatures that walked between man and beast. As a kid, I thought they were just stories meant to keep children from wandering into the woods at night. But standing there in the growing darkness, those old stories didn't feel like fiction anymore. A long, mournful howl echoed through the trees, not like any wolf I'd ever heard. It was deeper, almost human-like, and it carried something else in it. Intelligence. The sound was answered by multiple howls from different directions, surrounding my position. I clicked my radio, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dispatch, this is Ranger McCarthy. We've got a situation out here at Miller's Creek, and Sarah, call Tom Jenkins and the other hunters. Tell them to bring silver bullets if they've got them. Don't ask why, just do it. The radio crackled with static, and in that white noise I could have sworn I heard laughter. Dark, twisted, and very, very human. Whatever was out there in the darkness, it wasn't just hunting for food. It was hunting for sport. And somehow I knew this was just the beginning of something much worse. The sun had completely set now, and the full moon was rising over the trees, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. I had until dawn to gather a team and figure out what we were dealing with. After that, well, I had a feeling we'd all find out just how real those old legends could be. 2 hours later, I stood in front of 6 of the best hunters in Arkansas. We met at Tom Jenkins' cabin, the warm light from his porch keeping the darkness at bay. The moon hung heavy and bright above us, making everyone's faces look pale and worried. "All right, folks," I said, spreading out a map on Tom's wooden table. 3 dead cows, 2 missing hikers, and whatever I found in those woods. It all points to something big. My finger traced a circle around Miller's Creek. Everything's happening in this area. Tom, an old friend who'd taught me tracking years ago, leaned forward. "Bill, I've been hunting these woods for 40 years. What exactly are we dealing with? Here?" I pulled out my phone and showed them pictures of the tracks and the half-transformed arm. The sharp intake of breath from the group told me they understood how serious this was. "I know this sounds crazy," I said, "but whatever we're hunting, it's not normal. Bring everything you've got. Rifles, silver bullets if you have them, flares. We hunt in pairs, nobody goes alone." Mike Thompson, a local dairy farmer, raised his hand. "Silver bullets? Like werewolves? Come on, Bill, you can't be serious." Before I could answer, Sarah Chen, our local veterinarian, spoke up. I examined. Those cow carcasses. No normal animal could do that kind of damage. And those bite marks? She shook her head. "I've never seen anything like it." We split into 3 teams. Tom and Mike would take the North Trail. Sarah and her brother David would cover the east. I'd go west with the Johnson brothers, Pete and Ray, both former Marines who'd served a few years after me in Vietnam. As we geared up, I noticed something odd in Tom's basement. Old files and photos scattered on a desk. One yellowed newspaper, clipping from 1943, caught my eye. 7 missing in Ozark forest attack. Military investigation ongoing. "Tom," I called out, holding up the clipping. "What's this?" He looked uncomfortable. "Found those in my dad's stuff. Every 30 years, Bill. People go missing, animals get killed. My dad was part of a hunting party back then. Only 2 came back." A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to ask more, but Pete called from outside. "Movement in the trees. We need to go now." We headed out, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The forest felt different at night, like it was holding its breath. Our boots crunched on dead leaves, and every snap of a twig made us jump. The radio crackled. "Bill?" It was Sarah. "We found something at the old native burial ground. You need to see this." We changed direction, moving carefully through the underbrush. That's when we heard it, a low growl that didn't sound like any animal I knew. Pete and Ray instantly fell into military formation, just like we'd done in Nam. Old habits die hard. The burial ground was marked by ancient stone circles. Sarah and David stood near what looked like a fresh dig site. But it wasn't archaeologists who'd been here. The earth was torn up by massive claws. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing her light at something metal sticking out of the dirt. I brushed away the soil and found a rusted military dog tag from the 1940s. Next to it was a file folder marked classified in faded red letters. Before I could read more, howls erupted from all around us. These weren't normal wolves. The sound was deeper, almost human, and seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Form a circle," I shouted. "Backs together." The moonlight cast strange shadows through the trees. Were those branches moving or something else? The air grew thick with that wet dog smell I'd noticed earlier, but stronger now, mixed with something like rotting meat. The first attack came so fast we barely saw it. A dark shape, bigger than any wolf, burst from the shadows straight at Mike and Tom. The thing moved like a soldier, not an animal. It had strategy. Gunshots exploded in the darkness. Tom's scream cut through the night. Then silence. When we got to them, Mike was gone. Just gone. All we found was Tom, shaking and covered in blood that wasn't his own. It took him, Tom whispered. It stood up on two legs, Bill. Like a man, but not a man. And its eyes. He couldn't finish. The radio crackled again, but this time, we heard only static and what sounded like laughter. That same twisted, human-like laughter I'd heard before. We were being hunted, all right. But this wasn't any normal predator. This thing was smart, and it was toying with us. As we helped Tom back to his feet, I realized with growing dread that we weren't the hunters here. We were the prey. The blood moon turned the forest red. After losing Mike, we huddled in an old ranger station trying to make sense of what happened. Tom couldn't stop shaking. Sarah cleaned a cut on David's arm while the Johnson brothers kept watch at the windows. That's when we heard Mike's voice. Outside. Help. Please, someone help me. Pete raised his rifle. That's not Mike. He was right. The voice was Mike's, but something was wrong with it. Like someone learning to speak by copying sounds. It made my skin crawl. Please. So cold. Let me in. Ray grabbed my arm. Bill, look at the shadows. Outside, the moonlight showed something impossible. While Mike's voice came from the left, a massive shadow moved on the right. It walked, on two legs, but was huge, maybe 8 feet tall. Its head was like a wolf's, but wrong somehow, too human in the way it moved. Everyone stay quiet, I whispered. And whatever happens, don't show fear. I think it feeds on it. The creature spoke again, but now it used different voices. Voices of people who'd gone missing over the years. Young, old, men, women, like it was showing off its collection. Sarah gripped her rifle tighter. How is it doing that? Before I could answer, something crashed through the window. It wasn't the big one. It was smaller, but still larger than any wolf I'd ever seen. Its fur was black as night, and its eyes glowed yellow in the darkness. Pete fired first. The bullet hit it right in the chest, but it barely slowed down. That's when I remembered the silver bullets. I took aim with my revolver and fired. The creature howled, a horrible sound between a wolf's cry and a human scream. Where my silver bullet hit, its flesh seemed to burn. More crashes came from all sides. The shadow pack was breaking in. We were surrounded. The back door, I shouted. Now! We ran into the forest, the creatures right behind us. Sarah stumbled and I turned back to help her. That's when I saw it happen. One of the beasts caught Ray, but instead of killing him, it changed him. Ray screamed as dark fur burst from his skin. His face stretched into a muzzle, bones cracking as they grew. His eyes met mine, still human for a moment, begging for help. Then they turned yellow, and my friend was gone. Keep running. I pulled Sarah to her feet. The Johnson brothers were always close, and now Pete had stopped, watching his brother transform. Pete, we have to go. I can't leave him. Pete raised his gun, tears in his eyes. The thing that used to be Ray lunged at his own brother. I heard shots, then screaming. We ran until we found a cave entrance. Inside, Tom pulled out a flare, casting weird red light on the walls. We could hear howling outside, but they didn't follow us in. The silver hurts them, David said, breathing hard. And they're scared of fire. A deep voice rumbled from the cave entrance, not copied this time, but its own voice. It sounded ancient and angry. Clever humans, it said. You taste better when you fight back. In the flare's light, we saw it. The Alpha. It was massive, muscles rippling under dark fur. Its face was caught between wolf and human with eyes that glowed red instead of yellow. But worst of all was its smile. Too many teeth, too knowing. Your kind has hunted us for centuries, it said. Now we hunt you. But we don't just kill. It gestured to where Ray and Pete had been. We collect. Tom raised his rifle, but the Alpha moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. With one swipe, it sent Tom flying. Sarah screamed and fired her gun. The Alpha caught the bullet in its hand, a normal bullet, not silver. Run! I yelled, throwing my last flare at the creature. The Alpha pulled back from the fire, giving us a chance. We ran deeper into the cave system. Behind us, the Alpha's laugh echoed off the walls. Run, little humans! The night is long and... We know these woods better than you. By dawn, you'll all be part of my pack. We kept moving through the dark caves, our flashlights making scary shadows on the walls. 4 of us left now. Me, Sarah, David, and Tom, who was hurt but alive. The moonlight was fading, which meant we had maybe 5 hours until sunrise. Bill, Sarah whispered as we caught our breath. What it said about collecting people is that what happened to all the missing persons over the years. I nodded slowly, remembering the old newspaper clipping. Every 30 years, it's not just killing people. It's building an army. Tom coughed, holding his side where the Alpha had hit him. There's something else. Something my dad wrote in his journal. The curse. It's tied to this land. The first Alpha was a man who betrayed his tribe centuries ago. He made a deal with dark spirits for power. A howl echoed through the caves, closer now. They were coming for us. I checked my gun. 2 silver bullets left, not enough for a pack, but maybe enough for an Alpha. Listen, I said, we need to split up. I'll lead them away. The rest of you, head east through the caves. There's an old mining exit that comes out near the ranger station. Sarah grabbed my arm. That's suicide, Bill. Maybe, I said, thinking of Ray and Pete, of Mike's voice being used like a puppet. But someone has to stop this. Every 30 years is too many. Lives lost. The howls were getting closer. In the darkness ahead, yellow eyes began to appear like evil stars. The hunt wasn't over. It was just beginning. The morning sun never felt so good. After splitting up in the caves, I'd led the pack on a wild chase through the forest. Every trick I learned in Vietnam came in handy, setting false trails, using the streams to hide my scent, staying downwind. Somehow I made it to my cabin just as the sun came up. The creatures had disappeared with the night, but I knew they weren't gone. They were hiding, waiting for darkness to come again. I found Sarah and David at my cabin too. Tom hadn't made it. They'd heard his screams in the caves. That made 6 people gone in one night. We need to know what we're fighting, I said, pulling out my mom's old wooden box. Inside were papers, yellowed with age, written in Cherokee. My mother told me these were family records, but I never learned to read them properly. Sarah looked over my shoulder at the papers. My grandmother was Cherokee too, I can help. While David kept watch, we spread the papers on my kitchen table. Sarah translated slowly, her finger moving across the faded words. It talks about a man named Grey Wolf, she said. He was a tribal leader during a hard winter. His people were starving and he... She paused, her face going pale. He made a deal with a dark spirit. The spirit promised his people would never go hungry again, but there was a price. What price? David asked. The spirit turned him into the first Alpha, made him hunger for human flesh and fear. Every full moon he had to hunt. But the worst part was that anyone he bit or killed during the blood moon would become like him, caught between human and wolf. A sharp knock at the door made us all jump. When I opened it, 2 people in black suits stood there, showing government badges. Ranger McCarthy? I'm Agent Wilson, this is Agent Carter. We're here about the incidents. I let them in, but kept my hand near my gun. Something about them felt off. We've been tracking these attacks, Agent Wilson said. They follow a pattern, every 30 years like clockwork. We have files going back to the 1800s. Agent Carter opened a briefcase full of folders. The government's known about this for a long time. After World War II, they tried to capture one, thought it could be used as a weapon. Let me guess, I said. It didn't work out so well. The entire research team was transformed. Wilson nodded. Added to the pack. That's why they're so organized. They have the knowledge of everyone they've taken. Soldiers, hunters, trackers, all working together now. Sarah picked up one of the files. Why are you telling us this? Because in a few hours, a military team is coming to bomb this entire area, Carter said. They think they can end it with enough firepower. But we've seen the records. That won't work. The curse will just move somewhere else, start over. I thought about Ray and Pete, about Mike and Tom, about all the missing people over the years. How do we stop it for good? Wilson pulled out an old leather journal. According to this, the Alpha can only be killed during a lunar eclipse, which happens tonight, but it has to be done with silver and... He hesitated. The person who kills it takes its place unless they have Cherokee blood. The spirit's idea of a joke. The only ones who can end the curse are descendants of the people Grey Wolf betrayed. My heart sank. That's why you're here. You need someone with Cherokee blood to kill it. They nodded. You're our best chance, McCarthy. You've got the blood, the military training, and you've survived a night against them. That's more than anyone else has managed in decades. David looked at his watch. Sun's going down in 3 hours. The eclipse starts at midnight. I checked. My gun. 2 silver bullets left, not much, but maybe enough. If I do this, I said, I need to know everything. Every detail from those files, every weakness you found. And I need more silver bullets. Carter opened another briefcase. This, one full of silver ammunition. We came prepared. As we started planning, Sarah grabbed my arm. Bill, what if they're wrong? What if you end up like Ray? I finished. Better me than letting this thing take more people. 30 years is too long to wait. Outside, the sun was already getting low. Soon the moon would rise, and with it the Alpha and its pack, but this time we'd be ready. This time, we were hunting them. The moon rose blood red again, but this time I was ready. I stood in the clearing near the burial grounds, silver bullets loaded, flares ready. Sarah and David were hidden nearby with the agents waiting with silver-loaded rifles. My hand shook slightly as I checked my watch. 11:30 p.m. 30 minutes until the eclipse. The Alpha's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Brave little human, standing alone. Not hiding anymore? I called out. Come, face. Me yourself instead of sending your pack. A low laugh rumbled through the trees. But my pack wants to say hello, some of them you know very well. Dark shapes emerged from the forest. I recognized their movements. Pete and Ray, walking on 2 legs but changed, twisted. Behind them came Tom, his face now half wolf, eyes glowing yellow. Mike was there too, and others I didn't know, probably people taken over the years. My radio crackled. Bill, Sarah whispered, remember, they're not your friends anymore. Don't hesitate. She was right, but it still hurt seeing them like this. The pack circled me, getting closer. I held my ground, remembering what we'd learned. Don't show fear, they can smell it. Your friends are mine now, the Alpha said, finally stepping into the moonlight. It looked even bigger than before, muscles rippling under dark fur. But you're different. I can smell the old blood in you. Cherokee blood. You mean the people you betrayed? I said. Grey Wolf? The Alpha's red eyes narrowed. That name, I haven't heard it in a very long time. It came closer, sniffing the air. Yes, I was Grey Wolf once. I saved my people, made them strong. You cursed them, I said. Turned yourself into a monster. Monster? It laughed. I became a god, and soon you'll join us. Your friend Tom told me all about you before he turned. A warrior like me, someone who understands power. A cloud started moving across the moon. The eclipse was beginning. The Alpha saw it too. Its smile grew wider. Ah, you know about that. Clever. But even if you kill me, the curse lives on. Someone must always be the Alpha. Maybe, I said, but it won't be you. I fired the first silver bullet straight at its heart. The Alpha moved incredibly fast, but not fast enough. The bullet hit its shoulder. Steam rose from the wound as it howled in pain and rage. The pack attacked all at once. Gunshots rang out as Sarah and the others opened fire from their hiding spots. Silver bullets knocked back the transformed people, but didn't kill them. They weren't the Alpha after all. The thing that used to be Ray came at me. Sorry, old friend, I whispered, throwing a flare. He jumped back from the fire, giving me space. The moon was almost covered now. The Alpha roared, "Kill him!" But something strange was happening. As the eclipse grew stronger, the pack seemed to get weaker. They moved slower, their yellow eyes dimming. "The eclipse weakens the curse," Agent Wilson shouted through the radio. "Now's your chance." The Alpha knew it too. It charged straight at me, faster than anything that big should move. I dove to the side, but its claws caught my arm, leaving deep cuts. Pain shot through my body. Not just from the cuts, but something else. I could feel the curse trying to take hold, trying to change me. My vision blurred, and for a second I could smell everything in the forest, hear every tiny sound. "Fight it, Bill!" Sarah screamed. The Alpha stood over me, grinning. "Accept it. The change is already starting." The moon was completely covered now. The pack had fallen to their knees, whimpering. Only the Alpha still stood strong. My hands were shaking harder now, fingers starting to stretch into claws. But I still had one silver bullet left. The Alpha leaned down close. "Your last chance, warrior. Join us willingly." I looked into its red eyes and smiled. "Go to hell." The last silver bullet went straight through its heart. The Alpha's roar shook the trees. It staggered back, steam pouring from the wound. Its body started to crack like dry clay, red light shining through the breaks. "You fool," it gasped. "The curse must have an Alpha." I felt the change getting stronger, fur starting to sprout on my arms. But I also felt something else. The Cherokee blood in my veins, fighting back. Two kinds of magic at war inside me. The Alpha's body burst into flames and crumbled to ash. Around us, the pack members collapsed. Slowly, the fur melted away from them, leaving them human again, unconscious but alive. I fell to my knees as the curse fought to take hold. Sarah ran to me, grabbing my shoulders. "Bill, stay with us." The pain was terrible, like my whole body was trying to tear itself apart. But I held on to who I was, repeating my name, remembering everything that made me human. Slowly, the pain faded. The fur disappeared. I was still me. Agent Carter helped me up. "How do you feel?" "Human," I said. "But different. I can still feel it inside me, trying to get out." The eclipse was ending, moonlight returning. Around us, the former pack members were waking up, confused but themselves again. The curse wasn't completely broken. I could feel that truth in my bones. But maybe, just maybe, we'd found a way to control it. Dawn was coming, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. 1 month later, I sat in my cabin, watching another full moon rise through the window. My arm trembled as Sarah carefully gave me the injection. Silver nitrate mixed with holy water, something the government doctors figured out to help keep the curse under control. "Still hurts?" she asked, putting a bandage on my arm. "Every time," I smiled weakly. But better than the alternative. The recovered pack members were slowly getting back to their lives. Most of them didn't remember much from their time as creatures, which was probably for the best. Pete and Ray had moved to Arizona. Too many bad memories here. Mike was staying, helping me keep an eye on the forest. Tom's journal had become my journal now. I wrote down everything we learned, everything we experienced, just in case. The curse wasn't gone, just sleeping. I could feel it every day like a shadow in the corner of my eye. The government agents still visited sometimes, checking on me. They wanted to know how I'd fought off the change, how my Cherokee blood had helped me resist. I didn't have answers for them. Some things you just feel in your bones. "You know what's weird?" I said to Sarah as she packed up the medical kit. "I can sense things now. When animals are afraid. When a storm's coming, like I've got one foot in each world." Sarah nodded. "The elders used to say that warriors who fought evil spirits were marked by them, changed but not corrupted." I looked at my reflection in the window. For a second, I thought I saw my eyes flash yellow, but it was just the moonlight. "The silver. Injections work," I said. "But sometimes I wonder, what happens when the curse wakes up?" It's been 30 years of peace before, then everything goes bad again. Sarah put her hand on my shoulder. That's why we keep watching, keep preparing. You're not alone in this, Bill. A wolf howled somewhere in the forest. A normal wolf, I could tell the difference now. But it reminded me of that night, of the alpha's words. The curse must have an alpha. I picked up my journal and wrote the date, October 21st, 2025. Below it, I added, 30 years from now, someone will need to know what happened here. Someone will need to be ready. Sarah looked at what I was writing. You really think it'll come back? I know it will, I said, but this time we'll be ready. No more innocent people turned into monsters. No more families torn apart. I touched the silver bullets I always kept in my pocket now, just in case. The curse had chosen me that night, tried to make me a monster. Instead, it had made me a guardian. The moon rose higher, full and bright. Somewhere in the dark forest, something waited. 30 years wasn't forever, but it was enough time to prepare, to teach others, to make sure the next time this happened, we'd be stronger. I looked at my watch. Time for patrol. The forest needed its ranger, cursed or not. Same time next month? Sarah asked, packing up to leave. Same time next month, I nodded. And Sarah, thanks for everything. After she left, I stood on my porch looking out at the moonlit trees. A normal person might see just darkness out there. But with my changed eyes, I saw more. The movement of animals, the play of shadows, the thin line between our world and something else. The curse had tried to make me a monster. Instead, it had made me a protector. And maybe that was the real victory. Not just surviving the night, but being strong enough to face the next one. I picked up my ranger hat and flashlight. The forest was waiting, and I had work to do. Some say there's no such thing as monsters. They're wrong. But as long as I'm here, as long as I remember who I am, the monsters won't win. Not on my watch. Not ever again. The radio crackled to life at 6 a.m., jerking me awake from another one of those dreams. In it, I was back in the Arctic, watching my team disappear one by one into a white wall of snow. But this time, something was different. Something was following. Has Ranger Rodriguez come in? We've got missing climbers at the north face, over. I rubbed my eyes and grabbed the radio. Rodriguez here, how many missing, over? 4 climbers. No contact for 48 hours. Temperature dropped to -20 last night. My stomach twisted. Not again. Not more bodies to find. I've seen enough. Frozen faces in my lifetime, their eyes wide with terror. Mouths open in silent screams. 3 years ago, I lost my entire Arctic expedition team. 6 good people who trusted me to lead them. Sometimes I still hear their voices in the wind. But I'm a park ranger now at Glacier National Park, and those memories need to stay buried. I pulled on my heavy winter gear, checked my rescue pack, and headed out into the biting Montana morning. The sun was barely up when I reached the North Face parking lot. Fresh snow had fallen overnight, unusual for this time of year. Something felt wrong. The air was too still, like nature itself was holding its breath. I found the first body 2 hours into my search. He was perfect. Too perfect, like someone had carefully arranged him in the snow. No signs of frostbite, no blue lips, no damaged tissue. Just a man who looked like he'd fallen asleep in the cold. But his skin was carved with strange symbols I'd never seen before. They looked like ancient writing spiraling across his exposed arms and face. The second body was the same, and the third, and the fourth. All preserved like they were frozen in time, all marked with those bizarre symbols. In 15 years of mountain rescue, I'd never seen anything like it. As I radioed in my findings, the wind began to pick up. Dark clouds rolled in from the north, heavy with snow. The weather report hadn't predicted a storm, but something massive was building. The temperature dropped so fast my thermometer couldn't keep up. That's when I heard it. A sound that didn't belong in these mountains. Like ice cracking, but deeper. Almost like words. I spun around, my flashlight beam cutting through the growing darkness, but there was nothing there. Just snow, rocks, and that terrible feeling of being watched. My radio buzzed again. Rodriguez, get back to base. This storm's coming in fast. We need to assemble a proper team. Copy that, I answered, but my eyes were fixed on something in the distance. A figure, tall and thin, standing perfectly still in the falling snow. When I blinked, it was gone. I should have listened to my gut right then. Should have remembered those dreams that had been haunting me for weeks. Dreams of ice and hunger and ancient things waking up. But I didn't. Instead, I headed back to base to gather a rescue team, not knowing I was about to lead more good people to their deaths. The storm clouds followed me down the mountain, and with them came a cold that seemed to reach right into my bones. Whatever had killed those climbers wasn't done yet. And somehow, deep down, I knew it was waiting for us to come back. That night would change everything, but back then all I could think about were those perfect bodies in the snow and the symbols that seemed to whisper secrets I wasn't ready to hear. Back at the ranger station, I couldn't shake off the cold. Even with the heater on full blast and a cup of hot coffee in my hands, I felt frozen from the inside out. 7 people, Chief Parker said, spreading a map across the table. That's all we can spare with this storm coming. He pointed to the red circles I'd marked where we found the bodies. Rodriguez, you'll lead Team A. Johnson takes Team B. I looked at the faces around the room. Good people, experienced rescuers. But something in my gut told me we were walking into something worse than a normal rescue mission. That's when someone knocked on the station door. It was Joe Running Bear, one of the local tribal elders. His dark eyes were serious as he stepped inside, shaking snow from his coat. You found them, didn't you? He asked, looking straight at me. The ones with the markings? The room went quiet. I nodded. My grandmother used to tell stories, Joe said, his voice low. About the winter walker, the hungry one. It wakes up every few decades when the winter is wrong. He pulled an old piece of paper from his pocket and spread it out. On it were the same symbols I'd seen carved into the bodies. What do they mean? I asked. They're warnings. The old people used them to mark the walkers' hunting grounds. He pointed to the map where we'd found the bodies. There are caves up there, deep ones, places where it sleeps. Johnson snorted. Come on, we don't have time for ghost stories. We've got missing people to find. But I couldn't ignore the way my hands were shaking or how the temperature seemed to drop even more when Joe mentioned the caves. We split into teams an hour later. I took 3 people with me. Mike, our best climber, Sarah, our medical expert, and Tom, local guide who knew these mountains better than anyone. Team B went east while we headed west, toward the caves Joe had mentioned. The storm was getting worse. The wind howled like a living thing, and the snow was so thick I could barely see 10 feet ahead. Our headlamps made weird shadows dance on the white ground. Look! Sarah pointed to something dark against the snow. It was a cave entrance, almost hidden behind a sheet of ice. And there, carved into the rock beside it, were more symbols. We should check it out, Mike said. Could be our missing climbers tried to take shelter. The cave was eerily quiet inside, our footsteps echoing off frozen walls. Our lights showed. More symbols, hundreds of them carved everywhere. They looked old, really old. Hey, what's that? Tom's voice bounced off the walls as he moved deeper into the cave. We followed him around a corner and stopped dead. The walls were covered in ancient drawings. They showed tall, skeletal figures standing over tiny human shapes. And scattered on the ground were old bones, some of them marked with those same weird symbols. That's when we heard it. A scream. Not from inside the cave, but somewhere out in the storm. It sounded like Tom, but Tom was standing right next to me. That's impossible, Sarah whispered. How can we hear? The lights went out. All of them. At the same time. In the pitch darkness, I heard footsteps crunching in the snow outside. Slow. Heavy. Getting closer. Tom, I whispered, reaching for where he'd been standing. Get your backup light. But Tom wasn't there anymore. When we finally got our lights working again, there was just empty space where Tom had been standing. No footprints leading away, no sign of a struggle. Just a thin layer of frost where his feet had been and a cold so deep it burned. We need to get out of here, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Now, as we rushed out of the cave, I saw something that made my blood freeze. In the fresh snow, there was a single set of footprints leading away into the storm. They were huge, deeper than any human could make, and they were fresh. The radio crackled. Through the static, I heard Johnson's voice, "Rodriguez, something's out here. God, it's so cold." Then nothing but static. The storm closed in around us, and somewhere in the whiteout something was watching, waiting. And all I could think about was Joe's words, the winter walker, the hungry one. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was hunting us. The storm turned the world white. Our headlamps only showed swirling snow, and the wind screamed so loud we had to shout to hear each other. My watch said it was only 4 p.m., but the sky was dark as midnight. "We need to find shelter," Sarah yelled over the wind, "and try to contact Johnson's team again." Mike pointed to a rocky overhang ahead. "There, we can wait out the worst of it." We huddled under the rocks, and I tried the radio again. "Johnson, come in. Anyone from Team B, please respond." Nothing but static. My fingers were so cold they could barely press the buttons, even through my gloves. That's when we heard it, a sound that didn't belong in any storm, like ice cracking mixed with something almost human. A cry that made our breath freeze in our lungs. "Look." Sarah's voice shook as she pointed into the whiteness. At first, I thought it was just another shadow in the storm. Then it moved. It was tall, taller than any person I'd ever seen. Its body was skinny like someone who hadn't eaten in years, but its shoulders were wide and twisted. The snow didn't seem to touch it. Instead, the storm swirled around it like it was part of the creature itself. "Don't move," I whispered, but my voice caught in my throat. The thing turned its head toward us. Its face. God, its face. White as the snow, with black holes where eyes should be. Its mouth opened way too wide, showing teeth like icicles. Mike screamed. The sound seemed to excite the creature. In 3 long steps, it crossed the distance between us, moving so fast it looked like it teleported through the snow. "Run!" I shouted, shoving Sarah and Mike ahead of me. We scrambled through the deep snow, our legs burning with effort. Behind us, that terrible cry split the air again. Closer now. We ran until we hit a wall of ice, a frozen waterfall blocking our path. But there at the bottom was a gap, a small cave. "Inside, quick!" We squeezed through just as a long white hand reached for us. Its fingers left frost trails on the rock where they scraped. The cave went deeper than we expected. We ran until our lungs burned, taking turn after turn in the ice tunnels. Finally, we stopped to catch our breath. In the beam of our lights, we saw something that made my stomach turn. 2 people were huddled in a corner, members of Johnson's team, but something was wrong with them. "Hey." Mike stepped toward them. "Are you okay?" They turned around slowly. Their eyes were pure white, frosted over like windows in winter. Their skin had the same symbols we'd seen earlier, but these looked like they were carved from the inside out. "So hungry," one of them whispered, in a voice that crackled like breaking ice. Before I could stop him, Mike reached out to help them up. That's when I saw what they were eating. Frozen meat that could only have come from the missing climbers. "Mike, get back." But it was too late. One of them grabbed Mike's arm. Where they touched him, his skin immediately frosted over. He screamed as the ice spread up his arm like a disease. Sarah pulled out her flare gun and fired. The red light filled. The cave and the possessed team members shrieked and backed away from the heat. "Mike, come on." I grabbed him with Sarah's help. His arm was freezing cold, and his eyes had started to cloud over with frost. "It's inside me," he whimpered. "I can feel it. So cold." We ran again, dragging Mike with us. Behind us, we could hear multiple sets of footsteps in the ice tunnels. Some were heavy and slow, the creature. Others were faster, human, the possessed. Team members hunting us. Mike got heavier as we ran. The frost was spreading across his chest now. His skin was starting to show those same horrible symbols. "Leave me," he gasped. I can hear it in my head now. "The hunger," Sarah started, crying. I felt tears freeze on my own cheeks. We couldn't help him. We couldn't save him. We had to leave Mike behind. His last words to us were, "Run. Don't let it take you too." As we fled deeper into the ice caves, I heard Mike's voice join the others in that terrible hunting cry. The thing we were running from wasn't just a monster, it was spreading, like a disease made of winter itself. And somewhere in these tunnels we'd have to face it again. Because the storm outside was getting worse and the caves only went deeper into the mountain's frozen heart, Sarah and I kept moving through the ice tunnels, our lights bouncing off frozen walls. Every sound made us jump, the cracking of ice, the howl of wind through the caves, the distant echoes that might have been voices. "Maria," Sarah whispered, pointing her light at the wall. "Look at these." The ice was clear as glass here, and inside, there were people. Dozens of them. Some looked fresh, like they'd been frozen yesterday. Others were so old their clothes had rotted away. All of them had those same awful symbols on their skin. "This is its lair," I said. "It's been here for centuries," Sarah finished. Her light revealed more bodies deeper in the ice. "It's like a giant freezer. It's storing them." That's when we found the diary. It was half frozen in the ice wall, an old leather journal. I carefully chipped it out while Sarah kept watch. The pages were brittle, but I could still read some of it. "It's from 1978, I said, gently turning the pages. "Listen to this. The cold one takes us one by one, but it doesn't just kill. It keeps us, changes us, makes us like itself. Jerry turned yesterday. His eyes went white and he started carving those marks into his own skin. Said he was so hungry." A crash echoed through the tunnels. Close. We pressed ourselves against the wall, turning off our lights. In the darkness, I could hear something dragging itself across the ice. The sound got closer and closer. Mike stepped into view. But it wasn't really Mike anymore. His whole body was covered in frost and those symbols glowed faintly on his skin. His movements were jerky, like a puppet on strings. "Found you," he said in a voice that crackled like breaking ice. "The hunger. It never stops. You'll see soon." He reached for us with frozen fingers. We ran, but in the panic I slipped on the ice. I felt Mike's cold hand grab my arm. Where his fingers touched, pain shot through me like needles of ice. Sarah pulled me free, but I could already see the spot on my arm turning white with frost, a small mark, but I could feel the cold spreading slowly under my skin. "Maria, your arm." Sarah's voice shook. "We have to keep moving," I said, trying to ignore the creeping chill. "There has to be a way out." We ran deeper into the caves, eventually, finding a huge chamber. Icy columns stretched up into darkness, and in the center... "Oh God," Sarah breathed. It was a throne made of ice and frozen bones. Around it were piles of supplies, clothes, gear, things taken from victims over what must have been hundreds of years. And carved into every surface were those symbols, glowing with a pale light. It's not just storing food, I realized, the cold in my arm spreading slowly toward my shoulder. It's building an army. Every person it takes either becomes food or becomes like it. And now, I looked at my arm, where the first small symbol was starting to form under my skin. "Maria, no." Sarah reached for me, but I stepped back. "Listen," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I found these in the supplies." I pulled out 3 flares and some climbing rope. "I have an idea, but you need to trust me." "We're getting out of here together," Sarah insisted. Before I could answer, we heard it. That sound like cracking ice and screaming wind. The throne room had multiple tunnels leading into it, and now shadows moved in all of them. The possessed people were coming, herding us toward the center. And behind them, the creature stepped into view. In the open chamber, we could finally see it clearly. It was even more horrible than before. like someone had built a giant out of ice and stretched all the skin too tight. Its mouth opened in a terrible smile showing those icicle teeth. "Sarah," I whispered, handing her the flares. "When I say run, you run. Don't look back." The cold in my arm had reached my chest now. I could feel the hunger starting, a terrible emptiness that wanted to be filled. But I wasn't gone yet, and I had an idea that might at least give Sarah a chance. The creature moved toward us, and behind it, Mike and the others watched with their frosted eyes. They were all connected somehow, a hive mind of winter and hunger, and I was starting to hear their thoughts in my head. But that meant I could also feel what they were afraid of, what might hurt them. I just hoped I had enough time left to use that knowledge before the cold took me completely. The cold was spreading through my chest, and I could feel the hunger growing stronger. But it hadn't taken over my mind yet. I still had time. Looking around the ice throne room, I spotted what I needed. Old wooden torches stuck in ice holders on the walls. They were probably left by people trying to fight this thing decades ago. Next to the throne, I saw something else. An ancient-looking spear with strange carvings on it. "Sarah," I whispered, "I need you to light those torches with the flares when I say so. But first, help me with the rope." My fingers were getting stiff with frost, but together we tied one end of the climbing rope to the spear. I could barely feel my right arm now, and the symbols under my skin were spreading like frost on a window. The creature watched us, taking slow steps forward. It wasn't worried. Why should it be? We were trapped, and I was already turning. Behind it, Mike and the others stood perfectly still, their white eyes glowing. That's when I heard the voice in my head. Not my voice, their voice. All of them together like ice cracking in my brain. "Join us. The hunger ends when everyone is like us, when everything is winter." "Maria?" Sarah's voice seemed far away. "Your eyes." I blinked hard, fighting it. "Light them now." Sarah ran to the walls, lighting the old torches with the flares. The chamber filled with flickering light. The creature hissed, stepping back from the heat. The possessed people also moved away from the flames. That's when I understood something. They weren't just afraid of heat. They were afraid of light. Real light. Not the pale glow of their ice magic. The thing that had been human in them was still afraid of the dark. "The spear," I gasped, the cold reaching my neck. The tribes who carved those symbols, they knew. Light and heat together. I grabbed the spear with my good arm. The carvings on it were the same as the symbols on our skin, but backwards, like they were meant to fight the creature's magic. The creature roared, a sound like an avalanche. It knew what I was thinking. The possessed people rushed forward. "Sarah, the last flare, throw it up!" She fired the last flare straight up into the dark ceiling of the chamber. For a moment, everything was lit up bright as day. The creature screamed. In the bright light, I could see what it really was. Not just ice and hunger, but something ancient and dark that had been hiding in these mountains forever, waiting for the long winters. I threw the spear. Maybe it was luck, or maybe the part of me that was turning helped me aim better. The spear flew straight and true, hitting the creature right in the chest. The rope trailed behind it. "The torches," I yelled. "Knock them over." Sarah understood. She ran around the chamber, knocking down the burning torches. They fell onto the rope, and fire raced along it straight to the spear stuck in the creature's chest. The effect was instant. Where the fire touched it, the creature's icy body began to melt. But more than that, the backward symbols on the spear glowed red hot, and the thing started to break apart like a glacier in spring. It tried to teleport away through its ice mirrors, but the heat was too much. It let out one final scream that shook the whole cave. The possessed people fell to their knees. Mike, Johnson's team, all of them collapsed as the creature's hold on them broke. Then the chamber started to cave in. "Run!" I grabbed Sarah's arm with my good hand. We raced for the tunnel as huge chunks of ice crashed down behind us. I could hear the others following, stumbling like they were waking up from a bad dream. We ran through the tunnels as everything collapsed. My infected arm was burning now, the symbols fading as the creature's power died. but I could still feel a tiny bit of that cold deep inside, like a splinter of ice that wouldn't melt. Finally, we burst out of the cave into early morning light. The storm was gone. The sun was rising over the mountains, turning the snow pink and gold. We all stood there, breathing hard, watching as the cave entrance collapsed completely. Sarah hugged me tight, crying with relief, but I couldn't completely share her joy. Because even though we'd destroyed that creature, I knew something no one else did. In those last moments, when the hunger was whispering in my head, I'd seen the truth. There were more caves, more ancient things sleeping in the ice, and the little splinter of cold inside me, it was waiting. Winter would come again, and next time, I might not be strong enough to fight it.